We're right back to more of it. It's BK and Ferrario, live from the Car Shield studio on 101 ESPN.
If you lose the series against the White Sox, you just start packing it up for the season. Just, But then if you get swept, they should just, wherever their next series is, stay there.
Your own words. What do you do?
I'm not going to do nothing.
Gary, I understand the feeling.
I won't do anything.
The White Sox, they're terrible.
The team has won 6 games this year.
I know.
If the Cardinals don't win that series, you'll have all of the answers. You won't have to ask this question anymore. You won't have to say, this is the most important series of the year. No, you won't have to.
It's over.
Yeah.
That's what it sounded like yesterday on the Fast Lane. Honestly, hard to disagree with Kerry Davis.
Yeah, he's spot on.
He said everything that needed to be said. We can go ahead and take the rest of the day off. If they lose this series, just chalk it up as a lost season, boys. I'm not trying to overstate things. It's a 3-game series. Stalter's right at the beginning of May. Could they lose all 3 of these games and still make the playoffs?
No.
Sure. Technically, the Tampa Bay Rays, people still probably believe nationally that they're going to make the playoffs. They just got swept by this damn team. But the White Sox are terrible, dude. And I mean terrible. So far this year, here's how their series have gone. They were swept by Detroit. They lose 2 out of 3 against Atlanta. They got swept in a 4-game series against Kansas City, then followed that up by losing 2 out of 3 against Cleveland. Cincinnati swept them. Kansas City takes 2 out of 3. Philly swept them. 4-game sweep by Minnesota, followed by another 3-game sweep by Minnesota. And then they swept Tampa Bay, which doesn't make any sense. Outlier series, I don't understand.
So what you're saying is
I'm impressed they won a game against Atlanta.
Tampa Bay has lost 8 of their last 10 games.
So you're saying that White Sox are on a hot streak right now, coming into this game.
They swept Tampa and then got swept by Minnesota right after. So I would say they had a brief stretch of being hot. And
but
then
they at least know how to win.
Immediately dissipated.
Where the Cardinals are coming off of a game that they don't know how to win.
Well, the White Sox are coming off of 3 straight losses, so not necessarily.
Coming off of a series win. Series win, series loss. Cardinals have 2 series losses.
The Cardinals just won a series prior to the Detroit series.
No, they didn't. That
I
was
need
a
to turn
fluke.
your mic off.
That was a fluke.
And they won the series before that.
That was a fluke.
Okay, so the White Sox so far this year, they're 6-25.
Had the chance, though.
They are horrific. Their pitching staff is terrible. They have a 5.5 ERA as a starting rotation. That's good, quote unquote, for 29th best in Major League Baseball. They have a bottom 10 bullpen in Major League Baseball as well, and their offense is somehow worse than their pitching has been so far this year. This is the slump buster. Alex, sometimes you just need to go up against a team, right time. That is the White Sox for the St. Louis Cardinals. If it doesn't get corrected this weekend, I have no reason why I can come on here on Monday morning and tell any of you that it's going to get better this year. There would be no way for me to do it after this series if it doesn't get turned around.
Yeah, I mean...
And it will get turned around, by the way. This is a series where it happens.
Sure. That's what you said about that Detroit series. And, well, it didn't get turned around in that one, did it?
No.
They're a good team.
I mean, like, I know Kerry's being... exaggerating there.
I don't think he is.
I'm with him, though. Like, if you walk off of this series with 1 win out of the 3, or you get swept by the White Sox, and your offense is still putting up 4 runs, what are you going to sit there and cling to hope for? If you already did this against the Athletics earlier in the season, where you couldn't score more than 4 runs against them, and 1, 2 of 3, yes, but you should have swept it, and then you're going up against the worst team in Major League Baseball, and you can't put together 4 or more runs and win that series. This is a series that should be a sweep. Any team that we act like is a playoff team right now in the National League sweeps the White Sox.
Now, I will say this, and I'm not trying to do the thing where it's like, oh, BK, you're letting him off the hook. Eric Fedde has legitimately been good this year. The starting pitcher for the White Sox tomorrow, he has been really good. He was a guy that we kind of all assumed that the Cardinals would end up signing. Super cheap, coming back over from Japan. Like, this felt like the most Cardinals of Cardinal signings. And honestly, with the way that he's pitched so far this year, you'd probably be pretty happy with the way that he has pitched if he would have been the replacement internally for Steven Matz. In fact, he would be probably a pretty good trade candidate for the St. Louis Cardinals, if we're being totally honest with it. But that being said, he's the one guy that you will face this weekend that has any chance of shutting any team down, much less the St. Louis Cardinals. So they might struggle against him. That is not a reflection necessarily of the Cardinals offense. It's a reflection of Fetty being really good right now. Then you get to the bullpen, and you should dominate against their bullpen. There is not a single game this weekend where the Cardinals should be overmatched based on the pitching matchups that you are seeing. Your offense is better, should be better, and I believe will be better than the Chicago White Sox.
Again, if you don't walk out of this with the series sweep, it's going to be hard for me to look at this team and be convinced they're a playoff team.
You could win 2 out of 3. You're convincing in those 2 games. You maybe lose that game against the Fetty matchup like 5-4. And I'm not going to come on here on Monday and be like, well, you didn't do your job. Sometimes weird stuff happens in baseball in any one individual game. But you should win at least 2 out of 3, and they should be convincing victories in this series. That's what it's got to be. It can't be one of these like, hey, 2-1, come from behind victory in the 9th inning against the Detroit Tigers. Nah, that bleep ain't playing against this team. You got to make it convincing, and you got to not have to use your high-leverage relievers every single time that you go out there and win one of these games. We should get to the 7th inning, and it's like, this might be a John King spot.
Or GM.
That's the way that you should feel in this series at least a couple of times.
Yeah, that's where I am. I think it is a must to take 2 out of 3, but there are the caveats in that 2 out of 3. Because it does have to be convincing fashion. It is so hard to sweep anybody in baseball. Hell, the Braves are 5 times better a baseball team than the St. Louis Cardinals, and they didn't sweep the White Sox. So I think you've got to take 2 out of 3 in this series, and it does have to be in convincing fashion. It can't be like you said, that 2-1 victory. You have to use the high leverage arms. No, you got to beat the living snot out of this team. There are 3 teams in baseball that you should kill. The Marlins, they did their job against them, even though they had one weird game against them. Colorado and the Chicago White Sox. Those 3 teams are the 3 basement dwellers this season, and you've got to beat the living crap out of them every time you see them. You got to have that killer mentality, put them away and put them away early, and that's what the Cardinals has to do, because otherwise, I do agree with Kerry. I hate to say, like, this is a important series because it is the White Sox with 6 wins.
Oh, dude, it's huge.
They don't win in convincing fashion. There is a lot of reasons to not believe the offense will be turning things around.
If the offense doesn't get going in this series, you probably should see a hitting coach change next week.
I'd agree with that.
I don't know that it will happen, but it's probably something that should happen at that point in time. And this is not, once again, I want to say this very clearly, this is not a reflection necessarily of Turner Ward. I think Turner Ward's probably a pretty good hitting coach. His history suggests that he's a really good hitting coach. Had a lot of success with the LA Dodgers, did a pretty good job, it seems, with the Diamondbacks when he was there with Paul Goldschmidt. And generally speaking, I think has been pretty good here in St. Louis. Guys seem to really like him. I don't think this is a reflection on him, but it's not a reflection of other hitting coaches around Major League Baseball, that there are exactly 5 hitting coaches that have been with their respective teams for 3 years or longer. This is a job that has less job security, Alex, than being an NHL head coach. There are very few jobs in America that come with less security than being an NHL head coach right now. Being a hitting coach in Major League Baseball is among them. The Braves, the Astros, the Dodgers, the Rays, and the Blue Jays. That is the entire list of teams that have employed their current hitting coach for at least 3 consecutive seasons. The Cardinals have had their guy for 2 years, and they're like top 20 in Major League, or top 15 in Major League Baseball, and how long their hitting coach has been employed by the organization. It's nuts how quickly teams are ready to move on from their hitting coach, and it's because of what we say with the NHL head coaches. Hey, you're basically a therapist for your hitters. And sometimes the voice has to change. You need somebody else that can get through to them because, for whatever reason, that message has gone stale. And if the Cardinals can't get things going back on track this weekend against this team and this pitching staff, I think it will be every sign that you need to know it's not going to get back on track with this gentleman in charge of the hitting approach. Again, not a reflection on Turner Ward. I hate calling for people's jobs. I think it's totally unfair, but these are the stakes, and everybody that gets into the job knows it. This weekend is huge for Turner Ward and for this offense.
And I think on the flip side of that, I could argue that if they don't fire him and you struggle against the White Sox, it's not going to happen at all this season. They're just going to stick with it no matter what.
Probably.
I mean, you're right. This is a fireable series. It's a weird label to put out there, but if you don't find a way to look like a legit playoff contender against a crap team, then Turner Ward should lose his job there. And it sucks, but it's the only way to send a wake-up call to the players by saying, like, you aren't doing enough and you just lost somebody their job, so get your heads out of your you-know-whats. And if you don't, well, then you're going to be a 500 team the rest of the season and just get on board with it because there's no more hope with this White Sox. But because I'm the ultimate pessimist, I also feel like when you walk out of this White Sox series, we're not going to be sitting here celebrating if they go out and crush these pitchers and say, oh, the offense is back on schedule, because we've done this multiple times this season.
This is a series that includes all the downside and no upside. Yeah. There is no celebration that can take place after. They could sweep it and they could be amazing in the entire series. That's not a celebration. That's the expectation.
The hope is this becomes the jumping off point 100%. For the offense.
This can be the starting point of the confidence getting back instilled in those players. But yeah, if they sweep this series, it'll be mission accomplished. Job done. That's what you were expected to do against a team like this.
And because you just said, like, this is where your confidence gets jumping off point, I'd also argue that if you do lose this series and your offense struggles, this is going to be a moment that Ali Marmol's going to have to step up to the plate. And I'm not trying to, like, put him in the spotlight, but if you lose your confidence as a group because you can't beat this series, this is on your manager to find a way to get your players out of that rut. And also these veteran players that were brought in to keep the good vibrations going. If you lose this series, then I would say all of these leaders on your team are on notice because now you got to drag your team out of a rut.
I'm going to go out on a limb, and I think it's a pretty strong possibility.
I've said that before. I put a swing on a strong limb and it broke.
We decided to put ours underneath the carport instead of that.
See,
for that exact reason.
Much stronger.
If the Cardinals lose a series against the White Sox, you'll probably hear something about a team meeting on Monday. That'll be what happens.
Those always work.
I'm not telling you that it's going to be anything that like changes the course of the season.
Are we going to have arts and crafts this year? Wayno's not here.
A closed door
That's
meeting.
when that kind of thing happens where they say, we're not as bad as that team over there. We've got to get this thing turned around. That'll be
We're going to get an article of Wayno having a closed door meeting with the players to try and get them back in the right mindset.
That's Alex Ferrario. He is the eternal pessimist. He's Tanner Hendrickson. He typically plays the realist. I'm Brandon Kiley. I play the optimist when it comes to the Cardinals season. It's BK and Ferrario here on 101 ESPN. If you guys want to check us out on YouTube, you can do exactly that. YouTube.com/101 ESPN STL. Hey, while you're over there, go ahead and do me a favor. Hit that subscribe button. It helps us out, helps us grow the channel, helps us find new people that'll be listening to us over on YouTube. Enjoy us over there. The chat is off and running. That's called the Graveyard. That's what they're affectionately known as. And when you're over there and you're watching us on YouTube, youtube.com/101 ESPN STL, hit that like button, the thumbs up. That'll make us. It'll help us spread the word that this is not a terrible show. People like listening.
Drop some tongue emojis in there too, so I know you're listening right now.
You sound old.
Just so it pops up, be like, hey, you just heard our segment.
The tongue emoji?
Yeah.
Can you describe what you're referencing?
Yeah, this one. That one.
Okay.
Just drooled a little.
Thanks, man.
Put that one on the YouTube chat.
Coming up next, I mentioned NHL coaches, not a whole lot of job security. You guys ready to talk about the Jim Montgomery possibility now? I wasn't. I think I am now. We'll talk about it next year on 101 ESPN. With Alex Ferrario and Tanner Hendrickson, I'm Brandon Kiley. So the first time that I heard Jamie Rivers bring up the possibility of Jim Montgomery being the new head coach of the St. Louis Blues next year, I thought to myself, well, that's interesting. That ain't going to happen, though. Alex, my new tune on this is, well, that's interesting.
That might happen.
And that might happen next year because what we're witnessing is one of the biggest flops that we have seen in a playoff series since the last time that the Bruins were in the playoffs.
Oh, last year.
Alex, this is wild, dude. The Boston Bruins were up 3-1 in a series against the Maple Leafs, in which the Maple Leafs had no goaltending. None of it was working. The Maple Leafs had their best player, Austin Matthews, who's dealing with some kind of an illness that's just keeping him out of the lineup. The Maple Leafs had William Nylander, who just had disappeared from the series entirely and was being criticized in Toronto the way that Jordan Kyrou is criticized here in St. Louis. And oh, by the way, I haven't even mentioned the biggest whipping boy for the organization right now, which is Mitch Marner, who's been a Selke Trophy candidate and is one of the best players in the NHL at finding ways to eliminate offensive scoring chances for the opposition among all forwards in the postseason in recent years. Yeah, that guy's being criticized to high hell, and he is like persona non grata right now in Toronto. And Toronto just evened the series last night at 3-3. If the Bruins fail to clinch a series in back-to-back seasons after being up 3-1 in each of those respective series, it ain't going to be Jim Montgomery's choice to come to St. Louis. The Boston Bruins will make that choice for him because, Alex, this is a stat that was passed around yesterday. The Bruins are on the verge to become the first team in NBA, NHL, or Major League Baseball history to blow a 3-1 series lead in back-to-back seasons. Ooh. Doing that in Boston, yeah, that's a death knell.
Yep.
In your coaching career in that city.
Yep.
You think it's becoming possible that he's the next coach here?
I do. And I don't know if it's going to be like Boston saying, oh, we have to get rid of Jim Montgomery, because I think the ownership side of Boston will be like, hey, this is more players than anything, and we've got a great coach if you look at the resume of Jim Montgomery, but I think you getting bounced and coughing up a 3-1 lead on top of a coach that might not want to be there long term, that's probably going to be a recipe for, we're going to have to go on to a different direction. And depending on what other options are out there for Boston, they might look at this and say, yeah, it's our best chance right now, but I don't know how Boston goes back with it next year. Now, granted, their roster stinks. The fact that they were so good this season with what they had was impressive in itself, but that's back-to-back seasons that you cough up 3-1 leads, and you're doing it against a team that you haven't lost to in the playoffs in 60-plus years. So I would say if you were skeptical before, it's becoming a lot more of a realistic possibility that Jim Montgomery becomes available if Boston loses tomorrow night against Toronto.
Man, a number of people, I'm surprised by this, maybe I shouldn't be, are texting in saying, do we want him if this is what's happening?
I just took a drink of coffee. What? Yes, you want him. Look.
I don't know, man. Can't coach Pasternak in the playoffs. Can't coach Kyrou. Am I right?
Yeah, you're not wrong there, but he's got multiple... This is absurd.
He's a playoff choker, Alex.
Yeah, well, I've heard that one before, but he's not. Like, he's been to the second round with the Dallas Stars. He lost last year because of a bad goaltending decision.
Well, that's on him, right?
That is on him, but you don't have that goaltending decision here in St. Louis because guess who your number one guy is?
Well, we'll see.
You don't have to question that. Yes, you want Jim Montgomery. I just looked at this. When he was the assistant coach with the Blues, working with the offense those 2 years, they had the 6th best offense in the National Hockey League in those 2 years.
What'd they do in the playoffs?
Well, they got to the second round and nearly beat Colorado before Jordan Binnington was taken out.
Did they win?
Yeah, did he win a damn cup?
Sure. You know what, guys? I don't want Jim Montgomery and stick with what you've got.
Yeah, the best record in the league last year, lost in the first round.
Guys,
had a really good team this year, lost in the first.
I know what you're doing. I know what you're doing. You're trying to piss me off, and it's working. Everybody wants David Carl. Jim Montgomery is David Carl with NHL experience.
David Carl has more championships at the collegiate level.
It's true.
Doesn't he only have 2?
Yeah, it's 2 more than
Jim Montgomery's got 2 in the USHL.
Just 1 though at the NCAA level.
I didn't even know he coached the NCAA level.
Yeah, he coached at Denver before.
A really long time.
Carl.
Yeah.
Oh, good for him. Well then, I want David Carl. 2 more.
We're done with this.
In all seriousness, the reason why I continue to want him in a serious way, like I mentioned previously, like he's the Harvard. He's the school that you apply to.
So, no, hold on. Everybody gave me crap about wanting Sheldon Keefe. Let's say Sheldon Keefe comes back and win this series. Now everybody's just going to, now we want Sheldon Keefe if Toronto moves on from him.
Still don't want him.
Because
He's
of a
loser.
freaking playoff loss. Get the hell out of here.
Now, Sheldon Keefe will find a way to blow it in the next round, Alex. He's still a bad coach. We know that.
Or he'll
Got further than Jim Montgomery in back-to-back years.
That is true. That's wild. That's based on the players, Alex. It's the talent. So the reason why I would still very much view Jim Montgomery as the Harvard of your coaching search, where you're applying and saying to yourself, yeah, we know we're not going to get in, but might as well try, see if there's any chance that I could find a way in, is because the guy has shown when he is your coach, he maximizes the talent on your roster. Whatever your talent level is, he will extract every ounce of juice from that roster. Alex, I understand people look at this Boston roster and say to themselves, man, they are freaking good. Go look at the roster. They're good, don't get me wrong. I think the Bruins got everything that was possible out of this team this year, dude. They've got some really good goaltending, a few really good defensemen, and a couple of star-level forwards. Other than that, this is not the Vegas Golden Knights. This is not the Colorado Avalanche. This is not the Vancouver Canucks. This is a team that does not have the kind of talent that some of those other teams across the NHL do.
You don't think Charlie Coyle's the number one centerman in the National Hockey League? Yeah, no, he's not even fine. He's average. And he's the number one centerman on the Boston Bruins that just won 47 games.
It helps when you have David Pastrnak, and it helps when you have Brad Marchand. And it helps when you have a couple of defensemen that can play the role of a number one defenseman on a team like the Blues, for example. And it helps when you have two legitimate number one goaltenders. All of that, I'm not telling you he's got a bad team that he's working with, but Jake DeBrusk is one of his top line players. Pavel Zach is one of his top line players this year. Charlie Coyle in the top 6. These are not household names for the vast majority of NHL fans that are just casual observers. Some of them are pretty good players. I would take Jake DeBrusk in a heartbeat. But he's probably going to get $5 or $6 million in free agency this offseason. Just the NHL tells you what they think of players based on how they spend their money, right? How they allocate their resources. For context, Pavel Buchnevich is very likely going to get $8 million next year. Pavel Buchnevich is a much better hockey player than Jake DeBrusk is. And we're wondering here locally, is Pavel Buchnevich a top-line player? Well, Jake DeBrusk is a top-line player for them. That's what they're dealing with right now. Charlie Coyle, for your explanation, Alex, is Charlie Coyle a better player than Robert Thomas? Of course not. Absolutely not.
Charlie Coyle is Kevin Hayes.
That feels like a little bit of a disrespectful statement towards Charlie Coyle. But
Whoa!
Whatever. My point is this. It's a good team. They have exceeded what should have been reasonable expectations this year. Most people that are prognosticators for the NHL said that the Bruins would be the team that takes the biggest step back this year compared to where they were last year.
Yeah.
Of all teams in the NHL, many said they expect them to miss the playoffs entirely. So it sucks that they're about to blow a 3-1 lead against the Toronto Maple Leafs. I still love that guy. Yeah. I would absolutely love to have Jim Montgomery.
He's labeled as one of the best tactical coaches in the game currently, and I know you're going to say, well, he couldn't do it against the Toronto Maple Leafs. I would argue that's a player problem. The players aren't converting, but this is the way playoff series go. Somebody texted in a little bit ago just trying to rev my engines and said, you really want the guy that also couldn't beat the Blues in the Dallas Stars series back in 2019?
Another great point.
Guys, it was a wraparound goal that was nearly in the back of the net. Jim Montgomery coached a hell of a series in that game.
But by the way, the other reason I would be fully in on
Alex is legitimately getting upset.
The other reason that I would say to be in on Jim Montgomery is what you just mentioned, BK. You know what the Bruins were in this year, but they didn't say it publicly like the Blues? A retool.
Yeah.
They were retooling. Now, I don't think to the extent of the Blues, because I think they were still they were like Nashville's retool is what I would call it. But again, they didn't say it publicly because they still had the superstar in David Pastrnak, who is a household name, unlike Robert Thomas, who became a superstar this year. I think the Bruins were in a retool that really exceeded expectations this year. I thought for sure they'd step back, either miss the playoffs, scrape in like Nashville, not be the team that looked like a contender based on their regular season.
Yeah, the reason why theirs has gone a little better than the Blues has is because they have Charlie McAvoy, Hampus Lindholm, David Pastrnak, and Brad Marchand. Yeah. When you have those four guys, things are going to go pretty well for you, generally speaking. But other than that, man, it's a really solid, well-rounded roster that they put together in Boston, and they always do. It's not a team that anybody should have looked at the beginning of the season, just looking at the players that are on it and said to themselves, Stanley Cup contender. They weren't that. They shouldn't have been that. And they nearly were because of Jim Montgomery. And hell, they still might be. Like, they could win in Game 7, and then all of this looks just ridiculous 5 days from now. But the fact that they are even in consideration to not winning the series is pretty wild.
Well, and everybody in Boston is on the get rid of Jim Montgomery bandwagon because of one lineup change. They made a lineup change in Game 5 to a couple of different lines, and your
because of the
offense.
goalie thing. Because he keeps doing the flippy floppy.
Well, he stopped that, though, after Game 2. He played Olmark, and then Olmark ished the bed like he did in the first round last year. But, like, they changed the lines around because they weren't scoring goals, and they still didn't score goals. And people are like, why are you changing the line combinations? So if this goes south, people are going to be wanting Jim Montgomery out of St. Louis, or out of Boston. And I will say, Craig Berube is going to be a name that everybody's going to bring up in Boston if he's available. So that's why the Jim Montgomery thing might actually happen.
I know
if
he'll
there
have
are
success
other
there.
names.
He's a winner. Unlike Montgomery.
you need to
That's another reason why I don't want him here.
You need to send it to
You
Dan.
know who they
Drake.
should hire? Sheldon Keefe. Coming up next, no Dylan Carlson. No success for the St. Louis Cardinals offensively. Is that going to change when he gets back? We'll talk about it next year on 101 ESPN.
Terry Hendricks here with a Sports Center update driven by Johnny Londoff Chevrolet and Johnny Londoff Autoplex. Cardinals back in action tonight as they start a 3-game set with the Chicago White Sox. 7:15 will be first pitch, and Sonny Gray will get the start for St. Louis. News out of the NFL, Odell Beckham Jr. is signing with the Miami Dolphins. The Sports Update is driven by Johnny Londoff Chevrolet and Johnny Londoff Autoplex. See them at londoff.com. Chevy, together we drive. Are you kidding me?
We're pretty excited about where we are given the injuries that we've had. And obviously getting somebody like Dylan Carlson back will be a boost for this club. And so hopefully by the end of the week or sometime early next week, we'll see him.
That was John Mozeliak earlier this week on Bally Sports Midwest saying that, hey, we're actually okay with where we're at offensively.
The Cardinals are coming.
Just imagine how good this offense is going to be when Dylan Carlson, who hit .219 last year with an OPS of .651, and Dylan Carlson, who in 2022 hit .235 with a .695 OPS, both seasons was a below league average hitter, and in his major league career is exactly 1% below league average offensively. Imagine what the offense will be like when he returns to the lineup.
I will. Did you see spring training with a .521 slug? That's better than like if you combined 3 of the best slugging percentages on the Cardinals team right now.
You're not wrong there.
I'll take spring training Dylan Carlson right now.
Better OPS than Goldie. Better OPS than Goldie last year.
I'm sorry, what'd you say? I couldn't hear. Your mic was off.
Damn it.
Alex, I hate when the team does stuff like this. I understand why they do it because it's all you can point to.
It's like making a trade.
Yeah. It's all you can do. You have to point to stuff like this because what else are you going to say? Hey, we're really optimistic about the way that things are going. Just look at the No, there's no underlying numbers you can point to. We're hitting the ball. No, we're not hitting the ball hard. There's nothing else you can do. And so as the president of baseball operations, you say, well, we're about to get Dylan Carlson back. And based on what we've had in center field so far this year, there's some truth to this. They've been one of the worst hitting center field tandems in all of Major League Baseball. Dylan Carlson will improve that because there's nowhere to go but up from where they've been in that position so far this season. Again, there's truth to what he's saying there. However, the problem for the Cardinals is so much greater than anything that Dylan Carlson can provide. It's actually unfair to Dylan Carlson to put his name in the category of fixing the offensive issues. The offense is a problem because Paul Goldschmidt and Nolan Arenado and Nolan Gorman and Brendan Donovan and Jordan Walker and Lars Nootbaar, these guys that you were counting on to be your best players in the lineup, aren't hitting for any power. Dylan Carlson is a guy that you expect, hopefully, in a good scenario, to hit 15 home runs this year, dude. That's not the guy that solves your problem with power hitting this year. So, no, this isn't going to be the thing that solves the offense. The only thing that solves the offense is the best players on the team playing like the best players on the team again.
Yeah, and frankly, I'm not sold on Dylan Carlson as a center fielder. I think obviously you're better with Siani in center field, so who knows what your defense is going to look like when you put Dylan Carlson out there. But I do agree. This is unfair to put on Dylan Carlson of being like, hey, our offense sucks right now. We're getting Dylan Carlson back, and that's going to benefit us. No, what that's going to do is put more pressure on him to be an impactful bat, and it's going to put even more pressure on the rest of the offense because, our savior Dylan Carlson is not going to help us right now. I'm excited to see Dylan Carlson because the way he left spring training, I was optimistic that, like, hey, maybe you're going to have a better bat than what he's been. Maybe we're going to go back to 2021 Dylan Carlson and have another complementary piece that could benefit this team. But none of that matters if your 3-headed monster that we all talked about is only 1-headed and slightly headed.
Just going to move right past that. The reason why this bothers me
what happened?
Is because I look up in Milwaukee. It's not a lineup that's star-studded by any stretch of the imagination. They've got the other Contreras brother, they've got Willie Adames, and then they've got a bunch of young guys that are just kind of doing their job right now. You know what they're missing? Christian Yelich. You know what else they're missing? Garrett Mitchell. 2 guys that they were counting on coming into the season to be significant pieces of their lineup. Garrett Mitchell's going to be out for at least 60 days. He's been hurt for a while. He has not played a game for them yet. Christian Yelich hasn't played a game in almost 3 weeks now. You know where they rank right now in Major League Baseball in runs scored per game? Not a nerdy advanced analytic or anything like that, just runs scored per game. They're fourth in Major League Baseball right now in runs scored per game. they're not blaming injuries. They're going out there and they're producing. And their best players are performing like their best players right now. And then the young guys fit in accordingly. And they have a very specific style of baseball that they play. They're taking bases like crazy, man. They're stealing on the bases. They're playing really good defense. Their pitching staff's been pretty good so far this year. They're just doing Brewer stuff again. Meanwhile, the Cardinals are doing the Cardinals thing, where they're looking around saying, hey, well, we don't have Dylan Carlson. We don't have Tommy Edman. Who could have possibly expected us to perform? Well, I'm looking at your bullpen. I'm not making excuses for them right now. Keenan Middleton was supposed to be a huge piece of what you were doing out there. Riley O'Brien looked like he was going to fit into maybe not high leverage situations, but like that middle innings mix. He was supposed to be a part of that. He's also been on the injured list since like the first week of the season. You know what's performing really well right now? Your bullpen. And they're not blaming it on injuries. They're just going out there and guys are getting the job done. So I don't want to hear any of these excuses about who's not here, who's not available, especially when the names that are not mentioned there are Nolan Arenado, Paul Goldschmidt, Wilson Contreras. If those guys were on the injured list, all right, we could have a conversation. That's probably reasonable to say, things weren't going to go the way that you wanted it to.
We're not complaining about the offense.
Carlson? Get out of here. This is nonsense. Complete and utter nonsense.
Yeah, especially because he was deemed the fourth outfielder when the season started. You know, he wouldn't be the starting center fielder if Mo forgot to look in his handy-dandy binder and realize Tommy Edman had wrist surgery.
The fifth outfielder for the Cardinals.
And I'm not even sure, I think he's going to start in center field when he comes back. I don't think it's a guarantee. He just has the job.
It might be a platoon with him and Siani.
Exactly. I think it's going to be a platoon because they want to still stick defense-oriented first. They are sticking with their guns of, hey, our defense needs to be a strong point. Because you know it doesn't slump? Defense. At some point, these guys are going to hit. And I think they're going to continue to stick with it. I wouldn't be shocked.
Said that the other day, just in this series against the Tigers, that they will continue to commit to defense first because they saw what happened last year when they got away from it and it was a problem.
And if you're going to stick with that and you're Ollie Marmol, Dylan Carlson is not your starting center fielder. He is not the best guy to start in center field. Michael Siani is a better center fielder than Dylan Carlson. Carlson is a average center fielder at best. I would say he's probably a above average corner outfielder, but you got to keep Donovan in the lineup, so he's got to be in left, and you got to keep Newton in the lineup, so he's going to be in right. So there is no spot for Dylan Carlson. Oh, and by the way, he's not DHing against righties because A, he can't hit righties, and B, Alec Burleson needs to be in the lineup as well.
So here's a question for you guys. Dylan Carlson's very close to making his return. Matt Carpenter starting a rehab assignment tonight down in AA for Springfield. Yes. So those players are both on the verge of making their way back to the big leagues. Let's assume health. Everybody's healthy when those players are back. Who's going down? What do you think the corresponding moves are when those two players return to this roster? Because I think one is easy. I think the first one is you're probably sending down Pedro Paez. Von Herrera has slowed down at the plate. You no longer need him to play as your designated hitter. That role belongs, at least right now, to Alec Burleson. So I think Pedro Paez is probably one of the guys that I would be ready to send down. Who's the second one?
Wouldn't it be Fermin?
Will it be? Probably. Should it be? I think it's a fair question to ask. I would look at Brandon Crawford right now.
Oh, well, that's not going to happen.
Jose Fermin is a guy that has legitimately hit the ball well, and when he's been up here at the big league level, it's been very short sample size. His at-bats look good, dude. And defensively, I think you can make a pretty strong case. He's a better defender right now at this point in his career than Brandon Crawford. I've just seen too many plays from Crawford where the arm is not what it once was, and the mobility is just lacking, to put it kindly to him. It looks similar to what I remember Johnny Peralta, right, when he was here in St. Louis. For a long time, it was like, man, any ball he gets to, he's going to find a way to make the play. Not always super pretty, but he makes the play. And then by the end, it was like, he ain't making the plays anymore. That's how I feel right now watching Brandon Crawford. There's so little margin for error for a guy like that when it's gone, it's just gone. And I don't think he can play anymore. So I would give serious consideration to keeping Fermin over Crawford.
Who's pulling this team out of their rut then if you take that veteran leadership away?
Well, that's what Matt Carpenter's here for.
Yeah, but the reason you struggled so much is because you don't have enough leadership in that clubhouse.
And to your point, though, on Fermin and what makes it interesting is, and look, I just looked this up because I was curious. Okay, they've pinch hit for Gorman against lefties. Now, they did it with Siani as well. That one makes more sense. But they did it with Gorman, and they would put Fermin at second base. Fermin had great splits against lefties in a small sample size in AAA. Now, granted, last year he did not have good splits against lefties. But if they are so concerned about Nolan Gorman right now that they have to pinch hit with him
Also, you're
against left-handed
super
pitching,
left-handed heavy on your bench right now, dude.
Exactly.
And it won't change when Matt Carpenter returns.
and if you're sending down Pages, which I think makes sense because Herrera's kind of cooled off, so you're no longer going to utilize him as a bat-first guy. We know how they operate, and they're not going to burn the backup catcher if he's the only catcher on the roster. So then are you just going to say, okay, let's ride it out with Gorman and see if he can figure it out against lefties along with righties? Or are you going to say, let's kind of ease the burden on Gorman a little bit here and be willing to pinch it for him late in games with Jose Fermin, who, again, it's just a hot streak for him. But, dude, they should play into this hot streak.
Yes.
They should be playing into the hot streak just like we did with Herrera and Luke and Baker. I think Luke and Baker, like 2 years ago or last year, got super hot down in the minor leagues, and it was, hey, man, this offense is struggling. Well, why not just try?
Mm-hmm.
So I'm with you. I don't think Crawford can play anymore. I think his at-bats look terrible. His defense looks bad. And you're right. They are left-handed heavy. I can see a role for Fermin on this roster, but I don't think they'll do it because they're still worried about Mason Wynn's back, and they feel like Crawford is still a better shortstop than Jose Fermin.
I don't know that I agree with that assessment at this point.
I'm with you, but I was just telling you that I think that's where the Cardinals are at.
I think they're also going to say the veteran leadership is important to them. And that's why he's not going to go anywhere. Because I agree with both of you guys. Like, Jose Fermin is the better option. I think any other team would say, bleep Brandon Crawford, we've got our guys, now we're moving forward. But I think the Cardinals are so worried about not having enough leadership in the clubhouse that they're going to keep Brandon Crawford on this roster.
I think they'll probably keep him until Edman returns. I think that's the honest truth is. I think they're going to wait until Tommy Edman returns so they have a better option behind Mason Wynn if and when they make that move. I would also add this. The reason why you probably option down for me is just the roster game. Because you can option for me.
Last time we did roster game, Blues lost 8 games.
He's still a part of your 40-man. You can send him down. You don't lose him. He's not going through waivers or anything like that. Meanwhile, with Brandon Crawford, if you send him down, there's a chance that somebody else would pick him up. And in that scenario, you just lose his rights entirely for the rest of the season. Now, for me, based on what I've seen from him so far this year, that's not something I would be super concerned about. But it is something that I would imagine the Cardinals will probably have as a part of their calculus here. And I think they'll probably do what Alex said. They'll probably send Jose Fermin down. I think that is a mistake, personally.
Technically, if they want to keep the precedent that they've set, Nolan Gorman should go down so we can work on things.
With Alex and T-Bone, I'm VK. I'm not even responding to that. Coming up next, 314-399-9646 is the Air Comfort Service text line. If you guys have any questions, sports or otherwise, we'll get to Ask Us Anything next year on 101 ESPN. All right, 314-399-9646 is the Air Comfort Service text line for Ask Us Anything. If you guys have any questions, sports or otherwise, get them in on the Air Comfort Service text line or in the Graveyard YouTube chat at youtube.com/101ESPN-STL.
Keep tracking those tongue emojis. Got a ton of them after our first segment. Let's keep them going.
Let's get to this from the 573. Guys, what's your level of frustration with Yachty at this point? Personally, it's been an increasingly frustrating situation dating back to his final season with the club for me. I'd rather see him disconnect completely from the organization than set an expectation that he's consistently not been able to follow through on.
Does anybody really care about Yachty this season? Like, he was supposed to be here to help with the catching situation. I think the catching situation's been fine. Like, what?
He's supposed to help more in the minors than up here.
Fine, but it's not like I'm sitting here saying this season is a loss because of Yachty or Molina.
I totally agree. However, I am somebody, and maybe this makes me old school. Old man yells at clouds over here. If you make a commitment, you should probably follow through on that commitment. They said that he said he was going to be at spring training, like for the final 2 weeks, I think it was, and he never showed up. He said he was going to be around the club. Well, we're now 6 weeks into the season. He hasn't shown up a single time, at least according to everything that we're aware of. I do think that's kind of strange. And I think that the bar was set really low for him. And I think it's really good for the Cardinals that he didn't end up taking that bench coach job, because based on this, I don't think he would have been prepared for the time commitment that was going to take place. And it's why I'm skeptical that he's going to be interested in having the time commitment that's in place for him to be a manager somewhere soon or a bench coach somewhere soon. So am I frustrated by it? Not really, but I do think I think it's kind of telling.
He probably saw the disaster that was this team and was like, yeah, I'll wait this out one more year.
I don't think that's what it was. Yeah. I think he just didn't want to do it.
Yeah, and I think he's looking to just get paid to do what he's doing now. I'm not frustrated by it. I think the Cardinals should know what they signed up for. Like I was very skeptical of him even reporting to camp at all. And the fact that he had to go to Puerto Rico while he had a air quotes knee injury in his final season, like, hey man, Cardinals knew what they were signing up for. This is what you get when you hire Yachty.
And maybe there's stuff going on behind the scenes that we don't know in personal life. That's why this is gone. But if that is the case, be upfront with it.
314-399-9646 is the Air Comfort Service text line. This one comes from the text line as well. If you're a grown man and catch a home run ball, do you give it to the kid next to you, even if it's not a kid that is in your group?
Absolutely.
Totally agree.
I'm not taking home that ball.
T-Bone 100%.
Yeah, T-Bone is so looking at the kid and saying, "Get your own, kid.
Yeah, catch your own damn ball."
There's no way I keep that ball.
No, I'm keeping
not
that
in
ball.
Today's world where there's cameras on everywhere.
I will say this: like if it's at like batting practice and someone tosses a ball up there and I grab it, I would give it to a kid. But dude, catching a home run ball,
You're such a loser. Give it to the kid, man.
That is such a dude. The odds of you catching a home run or foul ball.
So if you and I are not with each other, and I'm there with my 3-year-old daughter, and she's wearing a shirt that says "My first Cardinals game," and you catch a home run ball, you're just gonna look at her and hold on to it.
She can take a picture with me with the ball.
God, you're such a jerk. People think I'm the a-hole. Look what just happened.
From the 636.
Pick her up and have her catch that bad boy.
I'd be afraid I'd drop her.
What's your favorite 101 ESPN show and a non-101 ESPN show that you listen to other than the one that you guys do? I listen to the Fast Lane the most. I think they're the most similar to what we do in terms of the content that they're producing on a day in, day out basis. So that would be the one that I most closely relate with. So for me, that would be my favorite program. Also, I've worked with literally every one of those guys at some point.
My favorite program is the Great Hockey Podcast that's done with Donnie Fandango, the Last Minute Blues podcast. You can get those at 101ESPN.com.
The question other than your own.
Well, it's not my own. It's Donnie's. I'm just a part of it.
The worst.
I mean, found my
T-Bone's
loophole,
favorite
right?
is the instant replay that's
it is.
at night.
Last night's was my favorite, by the way.
I'm glad you enjoyed it.
I really personally preferred the SLU basketball player that I got to hear interviewed.
Oh, you didn't get to hear it?
It was amazing.
You didn't get to hear it?
No, it was great.
Yeah?
Sounded a lot like Laird Veach, the athletic director for Mizzou. But
I've heard he's awesome, too.
Really, who's to say?
I've heard them all. I've heard they're great, too.
Well, even if we could pick our show, I wouldn't. Clearly not my favorite. Hate working with these two.
Understandable.
I would say the Fast Lane because I think you're right. I think they sound the most like us, and I love just kind of I don't want to call it quirkiness, but their sharp wit to have jokes ready to just on the fly fire off.
Yeah.
I think my favorite show to listen to outside of 101 ESPN, I love, I can't remember the name of what it's called. I'm drawing a blank now. The MLB Network radio show in the morning that they have with Mike Farron, who we love having on the show.
Leadoff spot.
Yeah, I think that's what it's called. And they've got Jim Duquette on there, which Jim Duquette, funny as hell. And then I also love the Roundtable on the Athletic Podcast Network. That's probably my favorite podcast going on.
It used to be better.
Wow.
Mark Carrick, man, he's the secret sauce. It's amazing.
Mine's not even a sports. I listened to Dan Cummins' Time Suck podcast. I'm telling you, it's freaking incredible.
My favorite show, man, I listen to so many. Look at that. I just
God, get a life, dude. Get a life, dude.
Favorite show. Establish the Run does a really good podcast. It's like fantasy betting related. That's one of my favorites for sure.
You're not good at betting, so I would not endorse that.
I'm terrible at it, but I enjoy the content.
You've missed our fantasy football playoffs 2 years in a row.
The Low Post podcast is really good.
I use the same program that you do for fantasy football drafts, and I always win.
I know, man. I know. It's not fun.
This is awkward.
I won $5,000 on Underdog.
This is awkward.
Playoff fantasy best ball, so I do pretty well with that.
Care draft that team for you?
You're the worst. 314-399-9646 is the Air Comfort Service text line to get involved in the show. From the 618, have you guys seen any of the NFL coverage of Bills' new wide receiver, Keon Coleman? He seems to be hilarious. Alex, have you seen this guy? He's amazing. He's my new favorite player.
Is this the dude that got up from the interview and was like, hey, can I have some of this candy?
Yes.
Was that him? Oh, okay, so I did see that.
He also, when he was in his press conference after meeting with the media for the first time as a Bill, they were talking to him about his jacket because he went to Florida State, right? And he was like, hey, you like this? He's like, I where do you think I bought this? And they were like saying all of these designer brands. He's like, nah, man, Nordstrom's. He's like, but I get it 2 seasons in advance. Because if you get it during the season in which you have to use it, you're paying upcharge. I get it in the summer when nobody else is looking for jackets. It was amazing. He's fantastic. Really, really big fan of him.
Sounds like he's smart, too.
I just like when he stood up, he's like, hey, can I take some of this candy?
Somebody from the 636. The rewind last night was great. I loved listening to the same interview twice. My son got into the car after a meeting and said, didn't we just listen to this? The best was when it ended, and you had just no clue that it played the wrong thing the entire time.
Look, that's the first time I've ever made that mistake.
Man, and you were doing it live, too. Like, how'd you mess that up live?
I know.
Huh?
Hey, man, when you work as hard as me and you're here this long, and
it's true.
Get in the office around 10, and then you don't leave until after the instant replay at 7. These kind of mistakes are going to happen, man.
Guys, we got some Cardinals news.
We'll get to it next here on 101 ESPN. Alongside Alex and T-Bone on BK, you got BK and Ferrario here on 101 ESPN. Alex mentioned prior to the break, there is some Cardinals news today. We were expecting this at some point, an update one way or the other. We have had an update, and it's not a great one. The Cardinals have announced that Steven Matz has been placed on the 15-day injured list.
And
They have recalled... T-Bone will give you 3 guesses.
Oh, boy. Zach Thompson.
Nope.
Andre Palante.
Nope.
Kloffenstein?
No. I'll give you 2 more.
Sam Robertsy?
no, he's not a starting pitcher.
What the bleep? Michael McGreevy. Nope.
I said he's not a starting
dude.
pitcher.
Come on. Use your
Oh.
context clues.
Who in the hell is down there on the 40?
I'll give you a hint. He was already a part of the Cardinals' 23-man roster.
27.
27.
He
Sorry, I
was?
forgot it upped.
Kyle Leahy. Kyle Leahy has been recalled.
Oh, well, that's no pitcher. I was thinking a position player. I was like, damn, they're really being aggressive.
I mean,
man.
I'm guessing they're just going to go to a 4-man rotation for the foreseeable future, and then they'll just
Well, that's
figure
good
out.
when there's 13 games in 13 days.
Well, they're good for now because they can go with Gibson on Sunday and Michaelis on Monday.
Then they'll
and
make a
then
move.
I
No,
think
they can't go to
Tues-
Michaelis on Monday, right?
Why not?
Oh, no,
He
they had an
pitched
off
on
day.
Wednesday,
Sorry,
so
they had an off
he'd
day.
be on turn. Sonny Gray, Saturday, Sunday, Monday.
No, they need
That
to make
would
a move.
Tuesday would be the one.
They're going with an extra bullpen arm until they got to make a move.
Yeah, and
for that
Tuesday would be
start.
the day where they have to go to their next guy. And I think
Is that where you're trying-
Simmer would be on turn
Well, I was-
to pitch again on Tuesday, if I'm not mistaken.
I was going to say, are they going to try and line somebody up? If it's not Sem, do you think they try and line up Palante or Thompson in that
It's
spot?
possible. It's possible. But just based on when they are pitching, I think Thompson and Palante are pitching on Saturdays right now down in AAA. So that would be tough for them to be able to make it work unless they just push him back, which is possible, I suppose.
I would.
My guess is Simmer will make that start on Tuesday.
Yeah,
And they'll
I
go
would-
with the 4-man rotation until
I would much rather just keep Sem down there for a couple more months and find a way to line it up with Thompson or Palante. I mean, you're in a position right now where this is kind of a fall guy in your rotation. I know you want to be competitive with it, but I just don't know if I want to do Sem up right away after he's having success. And I know he's having success, but man, I would much rather go with another guy that you're still uncertain about.
I think there is a better chance that Sam Robertsy can give you a competitive outing right now than Zach Thompson or Andre Palante.
I'm with you.
And if that's the case, I think you got to call him up. Is it a little rushed? Yeah, but as we've seen, some pitchers can be a little rushed and then ultimately figure it out. Looking at Johan Oviedo, he was kind of rushed through the system. He ended up figuring it out to a little bit of an extent. They have to be winning ball games this month. Like, this is the month that you find out if you can actually bounce back from being, 3 games below 500, or if you're going to be washed away and be another team that's not a playoff team.
Is it a little bit concerning to you guys that their best option to call up right now in the bullpen is a guy that none of us feel comfortable with throwing a major league game, and the other guy that they called up previously was Sean King, who basically has never thrown a big league game for the Cardinals this year? Now, technically he's done, I think, twice, but they are avoiding him at all costs. And then Nick Robertson is another one that they just don't want to throw out there right now.
So I don't
the
mind.
Bullpen depth is not good.
I don't mind the King and Robertson one. Like, if those guys aren't pitching, it probably just says the Cardinals aren't blowing anybody out, and it's
the
more on
last
the
guy in your
offense.
rotator
I
bullpen.
feel fine with those two. You're not going to bring them in high leverage.
No, of course.
I feel fine with those two. The Leahy one's the one where it is, man, they really, outside of Robertson and King, they don't have bullpen depth. They don't, and I don't even know.
And the truth is, there aren't other great options. I'm not telling you, they shouldn't have called up Leahy. They should have gone with this guy. Leahy's probably the correct call here because your other alternatives are Ryan Lutus, who's had 2 good weeks. He was terrible last season down in AAA. Jacob, who the last time that I saw him was in, I think, spring training. Bosivakovic.
Yeah, that's him.
He was amazing in spring training. He's been terrible down in AAA. He's been pretty good so far this year if you look at the underlying stuff, but the actual numbers are not good. They just don't have options down in AAA right now out of the bullpen that you'd be comfortable going to, and that's why Leahy keeps getting these call-ups. So it's not pretty after your top 7 or so.
What we haven't talked a lot about, and I think they operated properly in the offseason with the bullpen, just to be clear. I like the idea of, hey, let's just throw a bunch of names at the wall and see who sticks, and for the most part, they've all stuck. They did that in the minor leagues for depth, and it's not working. So they got to start doing some churning, and they may say, hey, look, it's only been the first month. It's still early. Let's see if a Wilking Rodriguez or a I can't remember the name they got from Houston that dealt with an arm. Josh James, I think his name's.
Yeah.
Let's see. Let's give him another month, see if the stuff ends up working out. They get their command figured out. Maybe they go that route. But I think to your point on Kyle Lee, he being the first guy you call up, that 40-man spot, they need to be keeping an eye out on bullpen arms that end up churning through other team systems.
And you mentioned that it's getting close to the opt-out date for a lot of guys across Major League Baseball.
He was someone I had interest in a couple of years ago. I would not do it now. But
those are the kinds of guys, though, that you're going to be looking at now where, hey, maybe there's somebody that ends up falling off of a tree somewhere else. You see a couple of things. Hey, if we change the shape of their fastball, arm angle, we could maybe get something out of this. That's something the Cardinals have actually, if we're going to give them a little bit of credit, and I think they deserve it, they've been pretty good about that over the last couple of seasons, finding these guys that are just trash for other organizations that end up becoming treasures, at least for a short period of time here in St. Louis. But the news of the day, another one. Going on the IL. Just another season. You're going to have Steven Matz going to the IL for 15 days.
It's the same thing with him every single year.
He is coming up. That's the thing that stinks, man.
It's timing. It's more than anything. It's like it's going to happen. It's just a matter of when it's going to happen. It's going to start off good, get bad, get injured, come back, bullpen. Then you're a starter at the end of the season to give you hope.
The thing that's frustrating to me about it this time around, the entire offseason was to support him staying healthy for 162, or at least to make 25 starts for you. And maybe he still can. Maybe it's just a back issue. It's going to go, and it'll be something similar to what we had with Sonny Gray, where he misses a start or two. Whatever, that's cool. You can find a way to make that up. But it's just a confirmation of the fears that you had coming into the season. His entire spring training was pushed back. He came into the season with a pitch limit because of that. And then finally, he's left to his own devices in the first outing where he had a full pitch count, like no real restrictions. It's like, okay, now we're going in the downward turn, and it's been bad ever since.
I think the reason that this one is more frustrating is because what they did in the offseason, to your point of, hey, let's make sure Matz is healthy, that was to treat the arm. That was let's make sure the arm holds up throughout the season, because that's what he's dealt with in the first season. It's what he dealt with last year at the end of the year where he had that, forearm strain, or I can't remember exactly, shoulder issue. I think that's what that was for. This back issue that this team doesn't have mattresses that they can sleep on. They're like sleeping on cardboard boxes where everybody has back issues. It's another one of those where it is, man, it's odd how many back issues this team has, but that's where it's frustrating because, like, the whole offseason program.
The wrong hotels.
Probably.
They've had more road games than anybody in Major League Baseball, I think it is so far this year.
The travel secretary? Don't fire the hitting coach?
No. Hey. I don't know who's in that position, but chill.
That's a good guy that's in that position.
You brought that up.
Are they sleeping at, like, the wrong hotels on their road trips? Is that what's happening right now?
Yeah.
Do they need to look into where they're staying?
When was the last time you slept good in a hotel?
When I was in Nashville, I slept
every time
great.
I go to Disney World, we sleep great.
Well, that's because you have your own resort that you go to. Sorry that the Cardinals can't afford that.
Did I tell you we're going on a cruise
And
next
you
year?
want to? And you think you're going to sleep well?
Have you ever been on a cruise?
Yeah. My wife was in the bathroom the whole time.
Really?
Yeah, it was not fun.
That's tough.
The bed was tiny.
Were you in the front or the back?
The middle, man. I don't freaking know.
I feel like that's an easy question to answer.
Not really.
My front, the back.
I don't have it circled in front of me and say you're sleeping here.
They literally do that.
No, I booked it online, man.
Yeah, and there's a picture of where your room is.
And you think I just remember where my room was?
I kind of would have assumed if you've been on one cruise, you had a pretty good idea of where the room was.
I can't afford the expensive room, man. I have to sleep in the cheap room.
We're sleeping in the very back with the extended balcony.
I just get to watch you guys leave port, you know?
Hey, man.
Where'd you leave from?
Florida.
Oh, never mind. I don't even get to go to Florida.
Further details.
Why do you need the specifics,
Miami,
man? I left from the
Fort
state
Lauderdale.
of Florida. What else do you need to know?
Port Canaveral is where we're going out of.
Where's that?
Look, man, I don't get
Like
to go.
Cocoa Beach.
I don't get to go on your
Like that.
bougie
General.
cruises and have a full balcony.
Okay.
We were close to the water, if that makes a difference.
My vacation this year is to, like, Edwardsville.
Well, mine will be to Branson like it always is.
I'm going to Mexico City in December, too,
Do you know
guys.
Silver Dollar City was named the best theme park, better than Disney World?
This
That's
guy's got the
ridiculous.
best contract in the building.
Oh, I know.
I'm really
Vacation
excited.
days.
I've never been to Mexico City before. It's like one of the cities on my bucket list.
When you
I'm
get there,
really excited
when
about
you get
this.
there, look up residency and stay there.
Damn, man. Thought we were really becoming
T-Bone, you on
boys
board
here
with
on
us,
the
right?
show.
If I can get his contract, sure.
No, I get his contract. You can have
Somebody on
mine.
the text line asked, which ship are we going on? We're going on the Disney Wish. It's the new one that they've got.
Okay.
They also have a new Disney has a new island. Did you know this? They've got the Castaway Key, and now they've got
Steven
the
Matz's
Lookout.
injury. It is
How the
frustrating.
bleep did we get to this cruise?
Because he wanted to fire the travel secretary.
Cardinals aren't
Oh, that's
interesting right now, but we'll talk more about them and the 5 reasons why you should be excited about them in the month
get
of May
the hell
next on
outta here.
101 ESPN.
Hopefully new hotels.
All right, so there's reasons for optimism with your St. Louis Cardinals alongside Alex and T-Bone on BK. That's according to MLB.com's Don Klimisch. Don posted a story yesterday, Alex, on the 5 reasons why May will be better for the Cardinals.
Slow on content, I guess, for Dawn for the Cardinals.
Would you like to go through these together and discuss if they are legitimate reasons for optimism heading into the month of May?
Sure.
Goes down for that?
I hear I get to live longer if I'm optimistic.
Number 1, the defense is holding out strong right now. The Cards have the 3rd fewest errors per game in Major League Baseball, behind only the Braves and the Nationals so far this year. Do you guys agree that the defense is a legitimate reason for optimism right now?
Yeah, it's the only thing you're holding on to optimism with, that in the bullpen.
Yeah, I'd agree with on the part about the defense holding up strong. Now, it's going to be interesting when Carlson comes back and how that impacts the outfield, because I do not believe he is a better center fielder than Michael Ciani.
Agreed.
So we'll see the impact that has. It may not be significant because I think he's average. I think Ciani's above average, but I would say yes, it holds up. It reminds me, it's not as good, but this is the best defense they've had since, what year was it? They won like 6 Gold Gloves.
2019? 2021? Maybe it was 21, yeah.
This is the best defense since then.
I think that's probably true.
Kind of a low bar to clear.
By the way, Arenado's been excellent defensively this year.
He's been the whole left side's been
legitimately
really
fantastic defensively for them so far. And I think maybe there is some Mason Wynn influence there. Like he mentioned to, I think it was Ken Rosenthal, Mason Wynn has really kind of helped him up his game once again with his pregame preparation. Whatever the reason, he looks great. So I do agree with this. I think their defense has been a reason for optimism moving forward. It's helped you increase the floor. The reason why the bottom hasn't fallen out on the season is the defense and the pitching. Defense a big part of that. All right. Number 2, I know Alex going to be in on this one. The veterans will click. Anyone who thinks Paul Goldschmidt is going to hover around the Mendoza line for the rest of the season is ridiculous. Goldschmidt, a career .292 hitter and 5-time Silver Slugger, has 5 seasons of 300-plus baseball in his career and 4 more of at least .290. He's given no indication of slowing in his age 36 season, and after a 5-for-12 series in Detroit, he's now slashing .370 with a .433 OBP and .481 slugging percentage over his last 7 games. The same goes for Nolan Arenado, a fellow 5-time Silver Slugger and a .285 career hitter who has hit .192 in his past 7 games, but still carried a .295 batting average in the month of April. Do you guys agree that Goldie and Arenado will click in the month of May?
Hang on, no indication of slowing down with Paul Goldschmidt?
I was a little surprised by that line, too.
That's a bold line to throw out there when we had 20-plus games of indication of it. Yeah, I'm not buying into that. I think they're going to improve because you can't get worse than what you started off with, but the slug is not going to be there. The home runs are not going to be there. The power is not going to be there. And what does Paul Goldschmidt and Nolan Arenado need to provide? Power and slug to the middle of this lineup. So, sorry, Dawn, I'm out on this one.
Yeah, I would say I'm in, but not to a significant step because what Alex said about their power, I agree with. I think there is serious cause for concern with Paul Goldschmidt and Nolan Arenado slugging. Really, on Nolan Arenado, that's the one that is really surprising to me. Goldie saw signs of this last year.
Hell yeah.
Last year. Hell no. Last year, Goldie had the lowest slugging percentage of his career.
Games.
No.
It's like, yeah, we're in agreement. No, he's not going that direction. I just had to quiet myself and cower into the corner over here.
What the hell are you
Let the
talking
man
about?
talk before you jump in.
My bad.
I would say will they click? I think so,
yes.
But it's not going to have the same. It's not going to be the 2022 Nolan Arenado and Paul Goldschmidt. It's going to be like the 2023 version.
I think that's probably true. Paul Goldschmidt, for what it's worth, in his last 10 games has been really good. Batting .350 with a .400 on base and a .500 slug.
Hell yeah.
Hell yeah, brother. See, that's what I was going for. The slug has been there. He's hitting the ball 97 miles per hour on average over his last 10 games. He's hitting the ball really hard again. Hard hit rate at 60%. This is the Goldie we expected to see this year. I can't tell you the same thing about Nolan Arenado. In his last 10 games, he's still the average is there. There's nothing to indicate that the exit velo, the power numbers, any of that is coming around. He's slugging .205 in his last 10 games. He does not have an extra base hit in that stretch, and his expected slugging percentage is .319. So there's nothing there to be excited about what Nolan Arenado is doing for power. So I'm 1 out of 2 on this. I think that Paul Goldschmidt is going to start getting things going. I don't know about Arenado, man.
I got a feeling this list is just going to get better.
Number 3. The schedule will improve. St. Louis has played 19 road games so far this year, which is tied for the Yankees, the second most in Major League Baseball, behind only the Pittsburgh Pirates. Add in the 6-ish weeks that the Cardinals have spent in South Florida for spring training on opening day, and it's been a brutal stretch for even the most veteran players and staff. The good news, though, is that St. Louis is now home for 15 of their next 26 games in the month of May, and they have 4 off days. The schedule will help them.
I honestly think we should defer the answer to this to our resident schedule complainer. When we talk about the schedule being disfavorable to her team, that's when BK always jumps in and yells, "Meh, the schedule doesn't matter. You're playing professionals."
It does matter for this team, though, because they clearly have issues finding beds that are suitable for their players.
It's true.
So, therefore, it actually might matter.
Let's take a look at what the Cardinals have done at home this season. 10 home runs, 214 batting average, 344 slug.
It's a big ballpark.
That looks real favorable.
It's the hangover effect, right? I know this certainly. Anytime that I come home after a trip, I typically end up getting sick.
Yeah.
I don't feel great. So I think it's that.
Executive producer's pulling a BK right now.
1 for 3. Next up,
The bullpen is really good.
Okay, that should have been number
Brian
one.
Helsley was the National League reliever of the month. Kit Rich has been fantastic. Fernandez has been really good. Liberatore has been really good. Romero has been awesome. St. Louis, quote, has plenty of optimism in the late innings. I agree with this. There's no real way to disagree with it, I would assume.
And it's going to get better, too. That's the part that I'm on board with.
All right, so that was number 4. And number 5. You ready for this?
So far, she's 2 for 4. So, I mean, we're at a 50% right now. She's playing like the Cardinals do.
The attitude is right.
Okay, I'm out.
Now she's really got the Cardinals record.
Ollie on the attitude of the team. Quote, I really like our club. They're tough. They're not going to give in at all. You look at what we've done over the last 30 days with our offense being where it's been. I don't think that's going to be lasting a long time. I feel really good about that being turned around and still continuing to play good defense while our pitching goes well. Luck will favor the prepared. This is according to Miles Michaelis. So if we keep at it and keep doing the things that we're supposed to be doing, playing good, solid, fundamental baseball, farming baseball, I think is what he called it.
Oh, God.
Eventually, we'll start catching those breaks. We're going to start winning a lot of ball games.
Doesn't Miles learn to just just say no answer? No comment?
Well, that one's not as bad as his. They're
The
playing
vibes are
baseball.
strong.
No.
We're going to win a lot of
According to Miles
baseball
Michaelis.
games.
You know what I don't care about? The freaking vibes.
Literally, the vibes are not strong.
We're 5.5 games back in the Central. We've got half of our lineup that are perennial all-stars that are underperforming a little bit, and we're hanging just 5.5 games out. I like our chances there once we get hot. I don't think anyone here is too worried, end quote.
Maybe they should be.
I hope
Picking
they
up good vibrations.
Stop.
No, Dawn's picking up good vibrations.
No. This is,
I hope that she is correct, but I do not get the warm and fuzzies that this team is vibing right now. And boy, they just need one slump buster to get them out of it.
This is why we can't cut Crawford, because he's the DJ in the locker room. It's why I would be skeptical of sending Marp on his rehab assignment today, because without him as our cheerleader, how can we beat the White Sox? This is blasphemy. This is so stupid that the vibes are a thing, okay? You know what wins baseball games? Talent. Hit the ball. See the ball.
How many comeback victories have the Cardinals had this season where they were down and came from behind in the 7th inning to win? And it's like, oh, man, that was a rally. Now the Cardinals are going to go for a roll. And then they lose the next game.
I agree with Don.
Stop it.
I think Don made some fair points in this argument.
2 of them.
I'd say 3 or 4. Yeah. Defense, bullpen.
Vibes, veterans.
Vibes especially.
You just wanted to cut Crawford earlier.
Yeah.
He's a vibe, dude.
And a veteran.
He is a vibe.
There's 2 of them.
I mean, they got Carpenter coming back.
And the schedule. You're on board with the schedule was not favorable for the
Have you
Cardinals.
seen their backs? I would say that they agree with it. They probably would like to be sleeping at home more often. Cue the Beach Boys, T-Bone.
No.
Can you play the music?
No. What I heard was losers making excuses.
One big one.
Maybe.
And I'm not talking about Dawn. I'm talking about you.
What?
Loser.
Coming up next, we're watching the beginning of what the next version of college football will become, and I'm going to go out on a limb and say I don't think Alex is going to be a big fan of it. We'll talk about it next year on 101 ESPN.
Tara Hendrickson here with a Sports Center update driven by Johnny Londoff Chevrolet and Johnny Londoff Autoplex. Cardinals back in action tonight as they start a 3-game set against the Chicago White Sox. 7:15 will be first pitch, and Sonny Gray will get the start for St. Louis. In a roster move today, the Cardinals placed Steven Matz on the 15-day IL with a lower back strain, and they recalled right-handed pitcher Kyle Leahy. This Sports Center update driven by Johnny Londoff Chevrolet and Johnny Londoff Autoplex. See them at londoff.com. Chevy, together we drive. Are you kidding me?
Alongside Alex and T-Bone, I'm BK. You got BK and Ferrario here on 101 ESPN. If you're a college sports fan, things are about to change for you in your viewership of the game. And they're really going to change if you like being able to take in how rosters are constructed. Alex, in previous iterations of college sports, long time ago, it was an amateurism model. Wink, wink, nudge, nudge, where nobody was paid and everybody was doing it for the love of the game and the education that you were able to get at the college that you attended, except for if you look at the SMU scandal and everything that happened there and basically everything else that's happened over the last 20 years in college sports. But anyways, I'll set that aside for a moment. Then NIL came in and upset the apple cart. Now players are getting paid in a serious way. The transfer portal has changed things as well. The court is striking down every restriction that was previously put in place for player movement. Now you can, like, mid-season decide you want to transfer to a new school. It's wild. And college athletics knows that it's got to change. Part of that is because they're being forced to change, because there's more court cases that are going through the court system right now, Alex, and they are getting sued out the ass. And there is money that is going to have to go towards players for a whole lot of cases that are going through the system right now, and the NCAA is trying to settle all of them.
And how, as we know, when you get sued that bad, well, you got to change.
Yeah, there's like billions of dollars that are going to be paid as back funds.
Nice.
For what's taken place over the last decade or so. So the NCAA is trying to find a way to make this work. How do we filter the money to the players in a way that we avoid this in the future? And according to Yahoo Sports, who came out with this big piece on it, it's very convoluted, very complicated. There are not a whole lot of answers yet. But the way that they are looking at this, Alex, is the NCAA is thinking about going to a revenue sharing model. What that would mean is that the players would get a percentage of total revenues every year that is paid to them. And that's not just football, that's all of the players on every athletic club at every Power 4 school in the country. Every school would have a cap, essentially, of what they can spend. You don't have to spend to the cap, kind of like in hockey, but this is the most money possible. We'll see if there's an LTIR circumvention for the cap.
They should probably talk to Vegas and find a way to abuse it.
This is the most money that you're allowed to spend on a year-in, year-out basis. Right now, the figure that they're looking at is somewhere between $17 and $22 million to spend on all of your players for every sport.
So that's every school?
Every school can.
So, like, everybody is the same cap?
Yes.
Okay.
And there's some conversation about, hey, should the cap be different in the Big 12 and the ACC.
See, that's where it gets real.
Compared to the Big 10 and the SEC, because the revenues are different in those respective schools.
But then you're going to have the advantage of the top schools always being in the same conference every single year.
The Big 12 and the ACC would be the ones that end up, like, fighting for that. This is not the SEC and the Big 10 saying, you can't spend as much as us. This is those schools that are in those conferences saying, we can't spend as much as you. And so what could end up coming together here is the money is divided among all of your different players. And one thing they're looking into, you could choose how you spend it. You can allocate the money in different ways than what you did previously. It's like scholarships are now paid through this fund. So if your school, let's say it's $40,000 for each player for their scholarship, plus expenses and everything, right? Well, now your football roster is 85 players. You got to pay for all of those. That's included in this. Your baseball team. Previously, you had 13 or 12 scholarships that you could allocate over your 30 players on the roster. So, like, 5 guys might have full scholarships to play for your team previously. The other 7 scholarships that you have to work with, guys would get, like, half scholarships or a third scholarship. They would get a portion of their college paid for to play baseball at Illinois, Mizzou, etc. Now, if you really wanted to be excellent at baseball, You could decide as a program, hey, we're going to be a baseball school. We're going to pay for 25 scholarships for a baseball program. Previously, we were limited to 13. Now we're going to really go all in on baseball. Another school might say, man, we're going to go crazy, buck wild with NIL for our basketball program. Like, if you're Vanderbilt.
That's us.
Go all in on basketball because you're just never going to be good enough. You're never going to have enough money to make the revenue necessary to go all in on football. There's just too many players that you have to get to be good at that. You could get 3 really excellent basketball players, $3 million apiece, and you could have an amazing basketball program. So it's going to be really interesting to see how this works. But Alex, the big grand takeaway here is that we could be going towards a revenue sharing model.
Yeah.
When you think about that and what it means for college sports, and we're heading in this direction, we'll see how it ends up being allocated, but this is going to happen at some point in the next few years. How do you feel about that as a college sports fan?
I mean, I'm looking forward to it. It sure creates a lot more intrigue for seasons. And like we talked about yesterday, you add in the fact that you're like signing on to be with this team, if that is the case, for a certain amount of years. I like the idea that you have the amount of money and you can divvy it up. And like you said, you're going to start to see a lot of programs just pick one lane and stick with it. The concern, I guess, would be that it's a scale that is tilted one side to where, like, you're going to get the football programs in every single year. Those are going to be your dominant forces, and you know what to come out of that. But
you mean kind of like what it's been
I was
for the
just
last
going to
6
say,
years in
so
college football?
really what it has been for the Alabama tenure, for the Georgia tenure, for the Clemson tenure, it's exactly what it was. I just think the exciting part of it is you have teams or schools that can decide what direction you want to go. I can't sit here on the old man soapbox anymore and complain about students getting paid. This is the way it's going to go. And frankly, I think since it's going this direction, this is probably the best possible outcome.
We did get this from the text line, a couple of texts. This would kill women's sports, and another sounds like a Title IX nightmare. That is something that I'm really curious about.
Yeah.
I am curious what this would mean for non-revenue sports. So some programs like Ole Miss baseball, Vanderbilt baseball, they make money through their baseball program, but it's incredibly rare for college sports baseball programs to make money. Nebraska makes money off of its volleyball program. There's a couple others, but the vast majority of schools don't make money off of volleyball. Women's basketball, there's a few that make some money off of it, but it's very rare spread across the landscape of the sport. The place where colleges, for the most part, make money in college sports, football number 1 with a bullet. There is no close second, and then men's basketball is number 2. So are they just going to allocate the vast majority of their resources towards those 2 programs and then kind of set the other ones aside? Sounds like that's probably what Mizzou's going to do, for example. Laird Veach has been talking about this since being hired at Mizzou and saying, football's driving our bus. That is the revenue program. That is the one we need to be able to essentially take care of every other program that we have here at Mizzou. I'm curious to see how other schools will decide that, where they're going to present or to allocate their resources. Like Stanford's a program, a school that really cares about non-traditional sports. They have a great rowing program, for example, in the past. Like that is a school that really cares about Olympic sports. Does that continue under this kind of a circumstance? I don't know, man. It's going to be something. College sports, as we know it, will change in a meaningful way. I think it's going to be better for a lot of the athletes. I don't think it's going to be better for all of them, though. There will be some athletes that get left behind, and I'm curious to see what that looks like.
Yeah, and I think you've already started to see that. Like, it is not better for a field hockey team in the Big Ten to be traveling across the country, to USC or to UCLA. Like, you've already started to get to that point, and it becomes more interesting now that you start to get to this model where it is, okay, everybody is getting paid. Now, how do we divvy that up? And I'm fascinated to know how it goes. I don't mind that they're going to this. I think it is a little bit of a benefit for all the players that they're all going to be on salary now, which is a very good thing that they're going to be working for these schools. But there is a lot to sort out. And seeing how the NCAA operates, I have fears of how they're going to sort all this out because, as we know, that is not a very good run organization. And it'll be fascinating to see what they end up doing.
I will also be curious to see what this means in terms of the restriction of player movement.
That's what I was going to say. Is this the death of the portal?
To a degree, potentially.
At least to the extremity that it is right now.
I would say probably.
Because like we said yesterday, when a coach goes, that's probably the opt-out of the contract for the players.
Right. If you're going to see something like this happening where you're getting a cut of the revenue, that is essentially an employment contract. That becomes, you are now doing with players in college what currently exists with the NBA or the NFL, NHL, et cetera. You have contracts in place. You're getting a portion of the revenue. First of all, if I'm a player, that means that I would probably want to have some kind of a union. It's really hard to do that, though, when all of the kids that are at that school have differing ideas of what that should look like for their respective programs. And also, all of them are there for a maximum of 5 years. In the NBA and NFL, et cetera, like you've got guys that are going to potentially be a part of that sport for 20 years. That doesn't exist in college sports. So unions become very complicated at that level as well. And then if you do end up going that direction, what does this do to restrict player movement? Well, our college is going to want sign the dotted line, you get X amount of money, but you're required to stay here for the next 3 years, or you're required to stay here unless our coach leaves. That'll be something that's worth looking into as well. There's a lot of answers that are not there yet. It sounds like this is probably going to take place at the earliest in 2026, so we're a couple of years away. But the NCAA is serious about it because they have billions of dollars that are on the line. And I think it said in the next 40 days they have to come to some kind of a determination. So over the next month or so, this is not a story that's going to go away. It will just accelerate in the rapid pace of what the next version of college athletics looks like. Coming up next, we're going to dive into the junk drawer here on 101 ESPN. Alongside Alex and T-Bone on BK, let's dive into the junk drawer. Alex, what do you got for us today?
So, guys, I got a list.
I love a good
I got a list, and it's from Bustle. No, that's not a busty magazine. It's not Hustler. It's Bustle.
Okay, totally different.
Okay,
Sure.
So the list was talking about
tell yourself.
it was talking about technology and how iPad registers have gotten super greedy at places. Everybody asking for tips, and so it went through a list of TV show characters and ranked them from how well they would tip to how bad they would tip.
Well, Alex would be the worst on this list. We know that.
Well, that's a false statement. I always tip 20%, so thank
Good
you,
for
sir.
you.
But we're talking TV show characters here, guys. They got a top 13 list. Now, some of these I don't think you'd get because I don't even know the TV shows, but some of them I guarantee you will. So I'm going to give you the show, and you tell me the character. In?
And
All right. And tell me where you think he's ranked. The Office. There's 2 characters on The Office.
Michael Scott's got to be one of them.
Michael Scott is one of them.
He's not going to tip well.
I was
He's
gonna
going
say
to be
he's
low.
near the bottom.
They have him at 11. They say he says to himself, always leave a generous tip, which is 10%.
Dwight?
Dwight's on here also.
I have to imagine he's going to be towards the bottom as well.
I'd say middle of the pack.
He's 12.
Oh, yeah. Wow.
They said even worse than Michael. He says he would never tip for a job that he could do himself.
That feels right.
It says, so let's assume he'll tip
I
5%.
struggle with that. Damn, I actually might be near the bottom of this list too if I was on it. I kind of struggle with that one, you know, like when they, you go to the ballpark, they literally open up a cooler and hand you a beer. Like, I mean, hell, I could do that.
I think that was the episode where it was a pizza guy and he asked for a tip and he goes, no, I don't tip for anybody that I could do my own job. Now who I tip is my, I think he said is like his mole doctor or something like that. Anyway, 13th on this list is Emily Cooper from Emily in Paris. No idea what that is. 10th is
I
from,
haven't watched it, but I've heard good
10th
things.
is from Gilmore Girls.
Never seen it.
9th is from Curb Your Enthusiasm.
Oh,
Okay.
Larry David's character.
Larry David's character.
He just plays himself in the show, right?
Yeah. He's tipping alone, if I had to guess, something around 15%. I ruined it there because I said what ranked he was. Okay.
Oh, you gave us the ranking?
Yeah, well, that one I
Oh.
did. That was my fault. Okay, so let me scroll through. Okay, TV show is Seinfeld.
George Costanza. Yeah, I figured it was going to be him.
Where do you think he ranks?
We've already covered the bottom of 3, haven't we?
Yeah.
I'm actually surprised he's not lower.
Is he 9? 10?
He's 8th.
Wow, I am
I
shocked.
would have assumed much lower.
He doesn't want to over tip and forever wonder about his intentions, so I'd say he tips around 16%. I've never seen this show,
Feels
but
too high.
you might know who Parks and Recreation.
I've seen episodes. I have not
watched
seen.
I'm
most
assuming
of
this
it.
is Amy Poehler's character,
Okay.
which Leslie Nope. Okay,
yeah.
so I got 2 more
I'm
for you.
surprised Ron Swanson wasn't the character they went
Yeah,
with
Ron
here.
Swanson was not on this. Okay, so I've got 3 more. Friends.
Oh,
They going Joey? Are they going
Chandler?
Are they going?
Ross.
Ross.
I
Oh,
figured
he's
he's
going to
one
be
of the biggest
like
ones.
number 1.
Yeah,
He's number 4.
Okay.
They're citing the episode where they go to dinner with his dad, and he like leaves like a $5 bill, and
Yep.
he runs
I
back
knew
and fills it out for the 20% tip. Okay, Breaking Bad.
Are they going Walter White here?
Walter White.
I don't know why they would have him high on this list. They've got him as a good tipper.
I don't know. Where do you think he is?
I mean, apparently we've gone through the vast
I
majority
think,
of this
he's
list.
middle, but middle of the pack. I'd say he's like 7th, but I don't know. Can't remember an episode of him in a restaurant.
It's 2. He's number 2 on this list. It says, for the same reason many of us do, he tips out of guilt, but he's got quite a lot of money, so he'd tip around 22% on the iPad.
Okay, I can see that.
Okay, and then the final one, How I Met Your Mother.
Oh, I don't know that show.
You never seen How I Met Your Mother?
Phenomenal
Barney?
show. Barney.
He's going to be a great tipper because he's always trying to impress, right? He's trying to be the ladies' man. Like, even if it's not real, like it's all a facade, he's got to be the one that ends up putting up the show.
He's number 1 on this list. Yeah. It says all he does is give tips. It's one of his tricks. After all, 21%. Legendary.
Yeah, he's got to be an absolutely fantastic tipper.
Who would be worse than Michael Scott and Dwight? Got to think of a character who's just like completely stupid,
I would have thought
right?
Costanza there, but
Well, that's true.
Yeah, that would have been my guess. Homer Simpson?
oh, for sure.
Feels like that
yeah, that is a
that
good
one or
answer.
Peter Griffin from Family Guy.
I think that feels like the route you're going to have to go there to be able to get where you're talking about.
That's probably the basement. Peter Griffin would be the basement on that one. I don't think I've ever gone lower than 15%. Like, I'm not one of the people that says you lost a tip for bad service because I always started at 20%. But, like, if it's awful, you obviously aren't going to give them the rate that you would give an incredible waiter or waitress. But, like, I don't think I've ever gone less than 15% on a
I think
tip.
we've talked about this. You guys tip for takeout, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
I do like 15% normally.
What I don't, I don't tip when I go to a place to pick up the food.
That's takeout.
Oh, okay. Yeah, I don't tip takeout. I tip
What were you
delivery.
thinking
I
of?
tip delivery.
Oh.
You tip takeout.
Yeah, I don't tip takeout.
You should.
Yeah.
Those people are
Fast
working.
food places do it now, which is just wild to me. Like fast food have the screen that they flip towards you and say, "Would you like to tip?"
Oh, like if you're a point of service, like if I'm going to
Target
McDonald's,
wants tips
right?
these days too.
Oh, stop it. If I'm going to McDonald's and I'm putting in my order at the front, like that, no, I'm not tipping there because
Well, what's the difference? It's takeout.
they put my food together for me and then I leave and they're working essentially as a server to this
Like when you
specific
pick up
area.
a pizza?
Yeah. I'm
So
gonna
do you tip like when you go to Papa John's or something?
for takeout? Absolutely.
Wow, you
couple
are-
bucks. I'm not going to tip them like a ton of money. Like if somebody makes me a drink, if I go to a bar and I pick up a beer, I'm going to tip them a little bit. They made my beer. Give them a couple of bucks every time I go back to, or like if I'm going to be at the same bar all night and I've started a tab, I will tip them well at the very beginning of the night. And then as I'm coming back, we'll tip them like none until the very end of the night if I have overwhelmed my stay.
Yeah. No. I guess I'm a
I'm
specific
an over tipper though. Also, I worked in the industry, so
I did too, but tip sometimes, tip other times I don't. Tip your pest control technicians.
Somebody
That's
said,
what you
what about
really
at a
need to do.
stadium? Do you tip at a stadium? No, I don't tip at a
No,
stadium.
yeah, I don't do that
Personally.
Yeah, that's
Should I?
one that's
Because
tough.
I don't think it's going to the person that's waiting on you.
I actually do, yes. I tip whenever point
But
of
I don't
sale,
think it's
yeah.
going to the person that's serving you or doing the cooking. It's going to the team, correct?
I mean, I guess it could
Or
go
the
either
company.
way.
I don't think it's going to the individual person. That's why it's like when I tip at the restaurant, I tip at the restaurant because I know it's going to
Like I
that
said,
individual person.
I have a tough time when they turn around, open a cooler, hand me a beer, and then I have definitely the
give a
office
couple
quote
bucks.
there.
Yeah.
Where I'm just like, man, if I could do this.
I tip when I know it's going to the individual that is doing service for me.
Somebody said on the Cat Dad Gamer.
Cat Dad Gamer.
Oh, he's back.
He's back. Where was the tongue emoji?
So
Cat
of
Dad
course,
Gamer.
BK tips whenever they made him a beer. They opened the bottle and handed it to you. I'm talking about like if I go to the bar and they've got a tap and they're pouring me a beer, I'll tip on that. Or if they make me a cocktail, I'm going to tip on that.
Yeah,
you guys not tip at a bar?
I take the Dwight Schrute
No,
route on that
I
one.
do. I just don't like. I'm not going like 20% or anything. I'm going
No,
like
a couple
12,
bucks.
15, somewhere in that range.
Yeah, no,
Yeah,
I mean,
if it's a $6 beer, I'll give them a couple of
again,
bucks.
I tip when I know it's going to that individual that is
Now
doing
I know
service
we've
for
had
me.
this conversation before, and I know that you guys were against me on this one. If they don't have what I went there for, no tip.
That is not. Oh, for the server?
Yeah.
No,
Like,
yeah, that's trash, dude.
If you went to
But like the place
Buffalo
that
Wild Wings, where I used to work.
the place that I did it like was at like I think it was a Starbucks or
So
something.
if you go to
like that, a
Buffalo
coffee
Wild Wings
shop.
and ask for a hot dog and they say, sorry, we don't carry those, you're not tipping the waitress?
Well, no, that would
If
be
you go to
on
Beat
me.
Ups and do you have a sauce that you use whenever you go there?
The Asian Zing, I think is the one I
they're
used.
out of Asian Zing. We're out. We don't have it.
You're not tipping?
You're not tipping?
No, that's to me that one's different. Like getting, I would tip probably a little less, but I would still tip.
What an ass.
If it's like a
What an
coffee
ass.
like shop and it's an easy like just literally black
Yeah,
coffee.
no, see,
and
that's-
you don't have black coffee. And then I have to like panically
leave.
order something
Well, yeah,
else.
just don't go there. So,
No,
like-
then it's awkward because we're they just don't see me not
What's
tip.
more awkward is you not
Yeah,
tipping.
No.
because
Disagree.
like I've gone to barbecue places before where I like want like barbecue
Yeah.
chicken or barbecue brisket, and they're like, "Oh, we're out of brisket." I'll get up and leave.
Because they don't make it more
Yeah.
throughout the day. They make it overnight. They pick it out, and then whenever it's gone, it's gone.
And so that's no harm to you. It's cool. I just ordered a water. I'm just gonna go because I wanted brisket.
So
And you're just
awkward.
gonna be like,
So
"Oh, I'll
awkward.
get second choice," and you don't get a tip.
Yeah, no, I'd get a second choice, and I'd go, sorry, that impacts the tip.
Get the hell out of here, man! You're tipping for service, not for the food.
I can't. I
Part of the
can't
service
believe
is
you're
what
really
I'm
saying
eating.
this.
Then go somewhere else.
No, because I've already sat down. It's really awkward when I just get up and leave.
Oh, you are so a bad tipper.
Somebody asked if you tip your bud tender. Absolutely, always. Coming up next,
what?
lesson can the Blues take from the Vancouver Canucks? We'll talk about it next here on 101 ESPN. Hey, it's BK with Alex Ferrario. We got to tell you about our friends over at Circa Sports in Illinois. Alex, I always try to shop the line. You look for your best line possible, and I'm getting those over at the Circa Sports app because I'm trying to win the most money possible. Alex, I've got an NHL four-leg parlay for you.
Another one?
I sure do.
Oh, baby.
I've got the Canucks winning in Game 6 against the Predators. I've got the Golden Knights winning in Game 6 against the Stars. I've got the Leafs keeping this one within one goal. It's at least determined by one goal, or the Leafs win. That's minus 213 over on the Circa Sports app. And I've got the Rangers on the money line against the Hurricanes. All four of those legs, $10 down, $116 if I bet it on the Circa Sports app. If I did the exact same bet over on FanDuel, $100 is all that I win. I'm winning more money on Circa Sports. That's why I bet with them.
Absolutely. Make sure you're getting the right money line. Make sure you're getting the right splits. You're taking those big parlays. You're using the right sports betting app, and that's Circa Sports in Illinois. If you or someone you know may have a problem with gambling, call 1-800-GAMBLER or text ILGAMB to 833-234.
With Alex and T-Bone on BK, so we've been talking a lot about the comparison between the Vancouver Canucks from a year ago and the Blues from this year here on the show, Alex. Last year, got about halfway through the season, and the Vancouver Canucks decided they were going to fire Bruce Boudreau. At the time, 18-25-3 was his record, and then the rest of the way, Rick Tocchet was amazing with them. 20-12-4, turned their season around. However, they finished the season with 83 points, finished 6th in their division, and missed the playoffs entirely. They come back this year, look like a completely different team. 109 points in the Western Conference, or one of the more dominant teams from start to finish this year. They get 100 points out of JT Miller, 90 points out of Quinn Hughes. Elias Pettersson, once again, another good, really good season by him. And Brock Besser, 40-goal season by him. Hell of a year by the Vancouver Canucks. Alex, they did make a couple of moves in the offseason that allowed them to get here. One, they had the right coach finally in place. That was a huge thing for them.
I think that's the biggest thing.
2, Philip Hronek and Dakota Joshua were added to their roster. Joshua added the jam that they were missing a year ago. Hronek had added, a legitimate top pair defenseman for them. When you look at the St. Louis Blues and where they're at in their build, do they have similarities in your mind to where the Canucks were this time last year?
A little bit. I think this is why I believe the coaching decision is going to be so massive. I looked this up prior to the show. So when Bruce Boudreau, however you want to say his name, was the coach, he was there for 103 games. The team was averaging 2.96 goals for per game, 3.26 goals against per game, 21.8% power play, 74% penalty kill, and they were averaging 32 shots per game allowed. Now, same amount of games played under Rick Tocchet. Listen to the difference. 3.37 goals for per game, 2.8 goals allowed.
So they basically
per game.
just swapped it.
Exactly. They swapped those. The power play got a little bit better. Penalty kill got a little bit better. And you averaged allowing 4 shots less than what Bruce Boudreau was.
In terms of what it was against.
In terms of what it was against. So you changed significantly with basically the exact same roster. So that's why I truly believe you got to get the right coach with the right scheme that works with this team. Didn't mean to rhyme it there, but it still worked anyway. That's the number one thing that I look at, and I say, yeah, you could do what Vancouver did, because I think you have a Elias Pettersson. You have a 100-point player in Robert Thomas. I think you have a Brock Besser, a Jake Neighbors. I think you can have what Jordan Kyrou can be to kind of what a JT Miller is. You don't have a Quinn Hughes, but I think you got a Philip Roenick. And that's why we talk about the number one defenseman. But that's the other thing that I would say, trying to emulate what the Vancouver Canucks did. They found the right guy to solidify their defense, because the previous year, they didn't have any defense. They had Quinn Hughes, who was a great player, but it didn't work with anybody, and they were a liability, hence the numbers with Bruce Boudreau. The coach came in and made it work, but then the general manager said, we got to go find somebody who can play into this scheme. And now, depending on if you figure out who your coach is, which Doug said they're going to decide who the coach is prior to the draft, you need to work your roster magic around the coach that steps in, kind of like what Vancouver did. Because I do believe you have pieces, much like Vancouver, that can turn your season around in the sense of being an average team to a team not to the level of what the Vancouver Canucks are now, but I think you could be a top 3 team in the Central if you find the right coach and make the right change on the defensive side.
You follow their path to get to where the Nashville Predators are.
Absolutely.
Where, like, you're competitive in a series against one of the better teams in the Western Conference in the first round of the playoffs, and you can do that by virtue of finding a couple of pieces that help you.
You got the right coach with Nashville that worked the first step.
Exactly. I think that the biggest thing to me is that the Blues are missing the defense. Like, we can talk till we're blue in the face about what they have in their top 6 with Thomas and Bolduc and Booch and Kyrou, all these different guys, right? Ultimately, it comes down to what's the biggest difference, the singular biggest difference between where Vancouver's at today and where the Blues are at today. Vancouver has Quinn Hughes and you don't. Yep. That's the biggest difference between those two teams. And, Alex, there's not a way for the Blues to go out and acquire that guy reasonably this offseason. You brought it up the other day about what the free agency class looks like. It's a nightmare scenario for any team that's trying to go to find players that can help them this time next year. That's where you do it, right? You go to free agency, you overpay, you overspend, give too many years, too much money to a guy that their team deemed not worthy of coming back on that contract. Otherwise, they'd be back. This is not the type of market that you want to delve into for that. There is no Alex Pietrangelo, just as a random name to throw out there, available this year. If the Blues are going to do it, it's got to be some kind of a blockbuster trade. That's the way they can go get that player. It's hard, ain't going to be easy. You're not going to like what you have to give up to acquire him, but that's the one way that you can go out there and get the player that the Blues are missing that the Vancouver Canucks already have.
Yeah, there's 2 routes to me. One is trading up in the draft, and that's going to probably cost you way too much that you're going to be on board with.
And then that guy's not going to be that player for 3 years.
Maybe. I mean, maybe you get somebody who can step in day one and at least be somewhat successful. But yeah, you're right. He's not going to be a number 1 defenseman for at least 3 years. The other is what you said, either a blockbuster trade or you need to find your Philip Roenick elsewhere. Now, I don't think Philip Roenick is a number 1 defenseman, but you can find a pair that works. And I mean, Roenick was a guy in Detroit who was playing 22, 23 minutes a night, but in 3 straight years, he was minus 38, minus 18, minus 29. And then he goes over to Vancouver, and his first full season, he finished the year this year as a plus 33 playing with Quinn Hughes. The other one to me, and again, you don't have the other player that we're talking about, but Devon Taves was the other guy too with Colorado. Now they pair him with Cale Makar, and again, you don't have a Cale Makar, but I think the goal should be finding a trade and finding a partner that works well with Colton Parayko. And I think Nick Leddy was awesome this year. But if Nick Leddy is playing, let's say, with Matt Kessel next season on your second pair, and you can go out there and find a Philip Roenick that matches well with a Colton Parayko, I think with the right coach and now a top 4 defense, you can get the best out of your overall roster. Because I look at Vancouver, I think you've got just as good defensemen as the other guys on Vancouver's team. The question is the Quinn Hughes and the Philip Roenick. And maybe you got a Colton Parayko that can match well with a Roenick. You got to find another defenseman who can be a 23-minute-a-night guy that can provide points the way that Roenick did.
And that's where things get really difficult and where the retool kind of hits the hole.
I think that's your biggest problem to solve to get out of this retool.
We said it when Alex Pietrangelo walked out the door. And listen, we've been wrong about plenty, whether it's Blues, Cardinals, whatever. Running a hockey organization is unbelievably difficult, and I'm not trying to suggest that it's easy. But we said it at the time, and we weren't alone. When you let Alex Pietrangelo walk out that door, the moment he walks out, you're looking for your next Alex Pietrangelo. Yep. You're going to spend the next 10 years trying to find him. Who was it that told us that from Toronto?
That was Koliakovo.
Koliakovo said, if you let him leave for the next 10 years, you're going to be searching for the next version of Alex Pietrangelo. And he's right. We've now been doing it for 4 years here in St. Louis. We're halfway there of trying to find the next guy that could be that number one defenseman. And until you find him, you're just going to be chasing your tail.
Yeah.
Because guys like Torrey Krug and Justin Falk and Nick Leddy, they have roles on good teams. I truly believe that. I think those guys can all be on a championship contending team. But it's the role that is necessary for them. It's like what we talk about with the Cardinals. Should Lars Nootbaar be batting third for a championship contender? Probably not. Should Kyle Gibson be a number 2 starter for a championship contender? No. But can Kyle Gibson be a part of a rotation for a championship contender? I think he can be a 4. I think you can have that. Can Lance Lynn be a part of a championship contender? Yeah, I think so. But it's a specific role that is necessary for him. The Blues don't have those roles defined right now. Yeah. They're all playing like 1, maybe 2 steps too high.
There's 2 guys that I would say fills this criteria for me a little bit. One, I brought him up, Nicholas Hague. I think Hague can be a guy that gets put into a better situation and provides.
As a number 1 defenseman?
I don't know if he's a number 1, but it goes to the number 1 pairing. Like, you're not going to find a number 1 defenseman in a trade, but can you find somebody that meshes well with Parayko that can provide you a number 1 pairing? That's what I would be focusing in on. The other one is calling up Ottawa and looking at Thomas Chabot. Everybody wants Chychrun. I don't know if Chychrun's this guy. Chabot, although he's making $8 million for the next 5 years, I think, but he's 27 years old, and he plays 23 minutes a night with Ottawa and has not been bad on a really bad team. Those would be 2 guys that I would see if I could find a way to bring into a different scenario. It's the same thing we were talking about with Travis Sanheim. You were going to bring in Travis Sanheim and looked like a number 1 defenseman this year. Put him with Parayko, you get a number 1 pair. I think that's the goal for Doug Armstrong to get out of this retool.
Yeah, I think it's going to be a gamble. No matter who that player, it was a gamble to bring in Roenick, you know? Like nobody knew for sure if this was going to work out for them, but it has in a really significant way. If the Blues are going to find a guy that clicks on that top pair with Colton Parayko, there's a decent chance we'll look at it at first and say, I mean, maybe. Like Sanheim would have been that guy where you say, if you squint and you find the right angle, this could work.
It's the chemistry you're looking for.
But if it doesn't work, you are stuck for years in a bad contract. The upside's significant. The downside is horrible. That might be the kind of move that they have to make. I don't think you make that move this offseason, by the way. I think that's something you make next offseason as you get closer to the end of the retool. But I think that's probably going to be what it requires. You've got to take some kind of a gamble.
Yep. With
Alex and T-Bone, I'm BK. Turner Ward made his first public comment since coming under some pressure here locally. We'll let you hear what he had to say coming up next year on 101 ESPN. With Alex and T-Bone on BK, you got BK and Ferrario here on 101 ESPN. Now, we've been talking a lot about Turner Ward. Earlier today, Alex, I mentioned there are all of 5 teams in Major League Baseball that have employed their current hitting coach for at least 3 years. It's the rare job in America that has even less job security than being a head coach in the NHL. Teams cycle through these guys like crazy. It's wild to see. And it's because the job is as much about having a message that people will continue to listen to as anything else. And over 162 games, when you're hearing the same dude telling you the same tips over and over and over again, man, it gets monotonous, and eventually you just tune that guy out. So it's hard to keep your job as a hitting coach. So earlier today, over on The Athletic, our own Katie Wu, Cardinals insider for The Athletic and 101 ESPN, we talk to her each and every Monday, had an opportunity to talk to the Cardinals hitting coach. And it's his first public comments that I've seen made anywhere, at least, since some of this pressure has been going his way. Alex, he said all of the things that you would expect to see. And I don't have an issue necessarily with any of the things that he said in here. He said in here, one of the comments, for example, this is an aggressive group, which is what you want. You want your hitters to be aggressive, but it's aggressiveness in the zone and aggressiveness and discipline in that area that you want. He then continued, patience. One of the things that I've had to work on more than anything else in this game as a hitting coach. I've watched so many guys go through struggles. Having some grace with the players and patience is always good, because at the end of the season, we'll probably end up looking back and saying, wow, that struggle was really tough to start the year, but look how much they were able to come out of it, end quote. He also talked about how, like, hey, I don't want guys thinking about slugging, because that will then push them into, like, trying to hit a home run every time.
Because Ollie wants more slug.
Well, you need more slug. It's a matter of, like, how you get there. Is it the slug? You try for slug and you get it? Probably not. Anyways.
Sounds like philosophical differences to me.
He said we have really good hitters. We have a really good offense. It's a shock not only to me, but to everybody that the offense is not in the best place, not in the place that it should be. I feel for Turner Ward, man. I really do. I don't think this is his fault. I don't think he's a bad hitting coach. I think he's more than qualified for this job. Unfortunately, one of the occupational hazards as a hitting coach is that you're probably going to get fired. And Alex, if the Cardinals go into this weekend against the worst team in Major League Baseball in the Chicago White Sox with a terrible pitching staff, and they don't get this offense going, I think there's a real chance that this is the weekend that we start seeing legitimate fire under the seat of Turner Ward. For better or worse. Like, I don't know if it's right or wrong, but you can't fire all the players, man. These are the guys that you bet on, and eventually you're going to have to eliminate that variable in Turner Ward if it doesn't get corrected.
This with Turner Ward feels a lot like what everybody was screaming about with Steve Ott in the power play, where everyone was like, the power play sucks, fire Steve Ott. And at some point, Steve Ott's just got to throw your hands up and be like, what else am I supposed to do? If I don't have the actual pieces that can make this thing run, meaning a one-time shot, a net front presence, then we're not going to have success. Turner Ward is probably looking at this being like, well, what am I supposed to do? I can't make Goldie and Arenado stronger when they hit the ball. I can't make Nolan Gorman not chase these pitches. I can't make Jordan Walker stop getting the ball off the ground, because that's how he is. We're at the point with Turner Ward where I got to imagine he's looking at this every single day going, guys, this is on them. At some point, they have to take this next step. But this is how it goes. You are the scapegoat. Somebody comes in and says, oh, I can make a tweak here. But really, it's not the person making a tweak. It's, oh, we're willing to listen to this individual. Oh, we're willing to take this individual's word, I guess, so to speak, and implement it into our game. But it also just takes the tension off of the players, because guess what? We got rid of the individual that was giving us we had something in front of everybody that says, oh, now we won't stink as bad because he's gone. And I think that takes the pressure off of everybody. So I would fully expect that if they fire Turner Ward, the offense starts to click and everybody points at Turner Ward and says, see, he was the problem. But then in a year, you're going to be talking about the same thing again, because the players are the issue.
Somebody from the 618 said on the text line, and 314-399-9646 is the Air Comfort Service text line. The YouTube chat is off and running at youtube.com/101ESPNSTL if you want to watch over there. BK, why are you focusing on Turner Ward? This is a failure from the organization, and it starts with Mo. The rest of the trash heap. The reason why I'm focusing on Turner Ward is because the Cardinals can't view it that way. The Cardinals cannot view this as a failure organizationally to get the right players in the lineup. Now, if you wanted to talk, if it was the pitching staff that was struggling this year, and you looked at it and it was like, hey, man, it's just not there for Kyle Gibson anymore, or Lance Lynn just lost it and he's just giving up homers left and right, that'd be a lot more understandable. And I wouldn't blame Dusty Blake for that. He was given a bad situation, and that's how I felt last year with Dusty Blake. I was like, hey, I don't think there's anybody in Major League Baseball that is a pitching coach that would have succeeded with what he was handed. I don't feel that way about this offense, guys. And I don't think the Cardinals feel that way about this offense. They showed you with their actions of not trading any of these players that they believe in this group. You have Wilson Contreras, Paul Goldschmidt, Nolan Arenado, who are proven major league contributors. Nolan Gorman showed you last year, pure power hitter. He's not hitting for enough average right now and probably will never hit for a ton of average. But right now, what we're seeing out of him is unacceptable. Lars Nootbaar, Brendan Donovan, they have not had the same track record as those other guys that I mentioned that are proven major leaguers, but they have enough of a track record that it shouldn't look like this right now. So when you have all of those guys going in a slump simultaneously, that does reflect on something. I don't know what it is. It might just be as simple as, Alex, you said he's probably looking at this saying, what am I supposed to do? Sometimes when I write something, I'll go back and edit it and I'll miss something. There'll be something in my texts that I just, for whatever reason, didn't see it. A fresh set of eyes is important in that scenario, where you have somebody else that goes back through, edits your story for you, and they find some of the mistakes that you maybe didn't see because you're just going back through and reading what you already know you wrote or what you meant to write there, and your eyes do a trick on you. Sometimes it's necessary to just get a fresh set of eyes in a situation like this. Somebody else that comes in and says, oh, look back 3 years ago what your swing looked like, look at what you're doing now, and look how much different these are. Let's try to get you back to this. It's this tweak, and this tweak. And maybe it's the way that they phrase it that ends up just clicking in your mind. I don't know why. I don't know how that happens, but we've all had that where our parents tell us something and we're like, that's the dumbest thing you've ever said. And then somebody else will say it too that's a buddy because it's a different voice that it hits your ears a little differently. It's the exact same advice that your parents gave you, but because they didn't give it to you, it sounds a little different and it clicks for you. And then you say it to your parents, they're like, you dummy, I told you that 3 years ago or whatever. That could be a situation that we're having here where just the message for whatever reason isn't getting through to the players anymore.
Yeah, and I think we're getting to that point, and it's why, like, even if it's a good series against the Chicago White Sox, as we said, it's not a big celebration. It's taking care of business, and it needs to be the jumping off point. Like, that doesn't just save Turner Ward's job. Turner Ward will still have 2 weeks to prove that his job is still safe if the offense starts to hit. And what is tough for me to, and again, I'm no hitting coach, but one person that I can look at as in my opinion, a fail from Turner Ward's perspective, and he talked about him in the piece with Katie Wu, was Jordan Walker. And the reason I bring that up is he brings up the chase, which, look, Jordan Walker was chasing that stuff away. But, guys, he also had that hip leaking that we heard national analysts point out. And you know what never got fixed was the hip leaking. Now, was it maybe he needs to cut down on the chase first and then you can work on the hip? I don't know because I'm not a hitting expert, but I do find it a little telling that Jordan Walker had 2 significant issues going on at the same time, and they couldn't even fix one of them, and instead they said, go to AAA. And again, I don't disagree with their decision to send him to AAA. I really don't. I think he does need to go down and get more mechanically sound so he can drive the baseball. But it is a very big negative on Turner Ward that issue was not fixed, and that was an issue that was pointed out by national analyst and former hitting coach, might I point out, Eduardo Perez, on the 3rd game of the season that we did not see get fixed while he was here.
We got one other thing from the 9-2-8. Guys, the Cardinals hitters are suffering from an acute case of analytics overload. There is something called too much information. They need to stop thinking and start hitting. I heard that said earlier today on the morning show.
Didn't Tommy Edman say that a few years ago?
No, he said the opposite. He said that they're not preparing enough.
Oh, that's right.
He said that the Cardinals
was the one
do
that
not have enough information available to them, and they're not preparing accordingly. Guys, if you have spent 2 seconds, and I mean literally 2 seconds around Turner Ward, I hope you understand that is not who we're talking about.
Just go in the clubhouse and see, because I've been in there and watched the managers walk back and forth, or the coaches walk back and forth with different pieces of paper and different equipment to stuff to get these guys ready for the game. It's all placed on their cubbies before they go out there.
But I'm talking something different. Like, Turner Ward is not the analytics darling that you guys think he is. Turner Ward is an old school hitting coach that is giving them what they need. everybody learns differently. There are some guys like Tommy Edman. His brother works in a front office in an analytical department. Tommy Edman can handle all of that. Throw everything his way, he'll be able to disseminate it and then implement it into his game in a way that works for him. Everybody's a little different. We talked about this with Mason Wynn last year, Alex, about, hey, when you're preparing for a game, what are the things that you like? The team gives them a lot of numbers. It's different in AAA than it is in the majors, but what do you like? And he was talking about heat maps. I like being able to see, okay, where are the pitches going to be thrown? What is this guy's arsenal? What's it look like? And then he looks at video and matches it up with the numbers, and that allows him to prepare accordingly for that day's starter. That's available to them. There are other guys that are looking for the shape of the pitch that's going to come in on them. They're looking for the perceived velocity instead of the actual velocity. They're looking at the extension. They're looking at all kinds of stuff, right? So everybody is a little different in the way that they learn and the way that they retain information, and then the way that they're able to go take that onto the field and incorporate it into their games. The reason why I will absolutely push back on this notion that they're suffering from an acute case of analytics overload is because the guys we're talking about that are struggling have been in this system, in this organization, and were MVP candidates with this hitting staff. So why did they work out then, and in the exact same situation, if it's the analytics that are the problem that you're telling me, why are they now struggling? It's not the analytics, quote unquote, that's the big boogeyman here. A lot of this is age. A lot of this comes down to Paul Goldschmidt is not 33 anymore. Nolan Arenado is not 31 anymore. And so their hitting is going to take a little bit of a step back, and they've got to adjust accordingly. Age comes for everybody, guys. So I reject this. Is it possible that the hitting coach is a problem, a part of the issue? Absolutely. Is it possible that they're not preparing well for the opposing pitchers? It's totally possible. I don't know. But I think there is a lot more going on here than there's acute analytics overload. No, I think that's nonsense.
It's weird to say that they're being overloaded with analytics when the guy that was analytics driven as your hitting coach was run out of town.
And they do have a guy. They have a numbers guy. Their assistant hitting coach right now, Brandon Allen, is a numbers guy.
But that's not the hitting coach. And
He's the assistant guy.
Well, I get it. But the hitting coach that they had in Jeff Albert was the analytics guy. And everyone was like, well, you got an analytics guy. You need Turner Ward, who's not an analytics guy, to take over.
They've got both. Like, they've got everything. If you need an old school guy, you can go to Turner Ward. If you're looking for something more numbers-wise, you can go to the assistant hitting coach right now. Like, they've got it all available to them. This is the way that a good organization should be operating. A mix of old school and new school. That's how your organization should be. And everybody has that. Texas has that, guys. Look at their hitting coaches. Like, they've got really good ones that are new school and also guys that are in there that have the classic old school baseball mindset. You got to have it all. And the Cardinals have that right now inside of that dugout. I don't think that's the problem, but eventually sometimes you just need a new voice. I think that might be part of the issue here. I don't know. I think the offense is eventually going to get back on track, but it's super frustrating to watch right now. Who would you bet on right now, Alex? If you said there's one player that I think is going to turn it around this season that's struggling currently, who would be your bet?
Lars Nootbaar. Because we've seen it. And I mean, you could say it with a lot of these guys, but like Lars Nootbaar is notorious for having struggles in the early portion of the season. And then at the end of it, you're looking at his slugging, his OPS, and you're like, yeah, that's right on board with what I thought he was going to be. Maybe the power's not there, but I would put Lars Nootbaar.
Yeah, I like that one, and I would say Brendan Donovan as well. I just think on base and is a lot easier to manufacture, quote unquote, than it is slugging, you know. And for Lars Nootbaar, I know we were just talking about analytics, and I found a really good one for this, so this is poor timing.
There we go.
But Lars Nootbaar is second in all of baseball in highest percentage of swings producing hard hit balls this season. The only guy he's behind.
So analytics.
I know, isn't it
God,
great?
I love it.
The only guy he's behind is Juan Soto. You know who's having a really good freaking year? Juan Soto.
That's actually, say that again. He's second in percentage of swings that produces a hard hit ball.
Yeah, highest percentage of swings producing a hard hit ball this season and a minimum of 50 batted balls.
Now,
So Lars Nootbaar second.
We want to go the other way. He's not swinging enough. Swing the damn bat, dude.
And by the way, when people hear me say that, they're going, well, it doesn't matter. You're not getting a hit.
Stupid analytics.
Wilson Contreras is fifth on that list. And he's been one of the best hitters in baseball, or has been the best hitter on the Cardinals.
Does it show how many swings those guys have taken? I'm sorry.
It doesn't. What, really? Come on.
No, the reason why
I don't have all the analytics.
No, the reason why I'm asking is because I do think one of the things that he's suffering from right now is he's kind of caught in between. And he's not swinging enough. Like, how many times have we seen him just watch strike three go down the middle this year? It's something that I think he needs to get more into swing mode. He is a super patient hitter, and that's a great it's a great skill to have, and it's something that will boost that OBP up over time. But right now, I don't think he's swinging often enough, and I think pitchers are taking advantage of that.
It doesn't have his number, but it does give me a sense of it's kind of the opposite of what Turner Ward is saying for a lot of the guys. Where a lot of the guys you don't want them to chase, they are pressing. For Nootbaar, it's weird. It's hey dude, let's let it rip, man. You are drilling the baseball.
Yeah.
Let's let that swing fly.
And mine, to that degree, or to that point, is Nolan Gorman. I think Gorman's eventually going to get this thing back on track. I don't think it's going to be some great season on average. I think he might end up just kind of settling into a 220 to a 230 hitter. That might be who he is. But he already has 4 home runs this year, which is a pace of 22 on the season. I think he's going to finish the year, if he stays healthy, with 35 home runs or so. I think he'll get back on pace power-wise, and that will help this offense a lot. But he would be my guy that will eventually click together, and he's going to have a week where he has 5 home runs in a week, and it's going to be like, oh, Nolan Gorman on pace for 35 home runs again. Who could have seen that one coming? With Alex and T-Bone, I'm BK. One's got to go coming up next year on 101 ESPN.
Alex Ferrario with you to talk about my friends over at Classic Air Care. When it comes to your HVAC system, as we're approaching where it's going to be hot and humid and you're flipping that AC on, you got to make sure that you have the unit that is in good shape. And that's why I use Classic Air Care. I'm a part of their maintenance program, which means basically every 6 months before I flip the AC on, before I flip the heat on, I have Classic Air Care come out, check the unit, tune it up, make sure it's good to go for the upcoming season. And they've been doing that for the last 6 years for me, and I have yet to have to purchase a new HVAC system. But here's the thing. I know I'm going to have to at some point, and when you do, you use the company that you trust. And Classic Air Care has been doing this since 1926. Thousands of people have been using Classic Air Care, and you can check them out up on Google Reviews, a 4.8 rating with tons of different positive reviews, like this one from Dennis talking about immediate response for a request with service on an ancient furnace that is 30 years old. Their technician, Brandon, well prepared, incredible people skills, and was able to walk me through everything that I needed and had me up and running that day. So give him a call today. Tell him Alex Ferrario sent you, and get with the right people with your HVAC system. Classic Air Care and ClassicAirCare.com.
Taylor Hendrickson here with a Sports Center update brought to you by Saliga Heating and Cooling. Cardinals back in action tonight. They start a 3-game set with the Chicago White Sox. 7:15 will be first pitch. Sonny Gray will get the start for St. Louis. And news out of the NBA, the LA Lakers have fired head coach Darvin Ham. The Sports Update is brought to you by Saliga Heating and Cooling, an independent American Standard heat and air conditioning dealer.
All right, let's get into One's Gotta Go. You give us 4 options. We'll tell you which one's got to go here on BK and Ferrario. We'll get to the BK and Ferrario Rewind and an opportunity for you to win a 4-pack of tickets to next Tuesday night's Budweiser Bash game for Cardinals versus Mets in just a little bit. Alex, let's start with this. One's Gotta Go Soda Edition. Pepsi, Coke, Dr. Pepper, or Sprite?
Oh, Dr. Pepper.
Really?
Yeah, I hate Dr. Pepper.
Pepsi's got to go.
Wow.
I'm with you
all
there.
different.
Coke over Pepsi any day of the week, but
Really?
I don't like Dr. Pepper.
T-Bone shocked.
Wow.
Yeah.
I love Dr. Pepper. It's my favorite.
I'm a weirdo. I love Sprite. I can't do Sierra Mist because when I was doing it, I had a colonoscopy.
that.
I
Well,
mixed
not for that
I
reason.
mixed the powder in Sierra Mist because they're like, hey, mix it with white
Yeah.
soda. So now anytime I drink Sierra Mist, I think of colonoscopies.
When I got my food poisoning after eating some food, it was a specific kind of chips that I
Just
had
say
that
gas
night.
station sushi. It's fine, man.
No, I had chips that night from a Mexican restaurant, and I can't eat their chips anymore. Not because that's what caused it, but because that's what
Oh, I was like, what?
I was gonna say, how did chips give you food poisoning?
that's what came up as I had.
Coke's one that I'd get rid of in this group.
What?
Really?
I'm not a fan of Coca-Cola.
Oh, you're insane.
Okay. One's got to go.
Literally named Coke.
I know we're going to get mad about his answer on this one too, Alex. One's got to go Adam Sandler movie edition. The Waterboy, Billy Madison, Happy Gilmore, or Big Daddy?
Oh, easy. Big Daddy.
So
I was not impressed. You guys really hyped that film up, and I watched that
incredible.
and left going,
But
man,
you
these
see,
guys wasted 2 hours of my time.
the problem with it is I would get rid of Big Daddy in all 4 of these because the other 3 are just so incredible.
classics.
I mean, power rankings would be Billy Madison, Happy Gilmore, then Waterboy of all Adam Sandler films.
I think that the other 3 are more. They're more classic movies that are more important to his catalog. I think I enjoy Big Daddy more than The Waterboy. Is that acceptable? Are we allowed to say that out loud?
No,
or no?
it's acceptable.
No,
I have
not
more.
acceptable.
I have more quotable moments from Waterboy though than I do Big Daddy.
Man, I don't know. Probably. And there's certainly more like.
Like Farmer Ed is just one that's always in my head. Biscotti, oh no.
That's the immediate thing that came to. I don't know if you saw Xavier Legette's press conference, but that's all I could think of. All right, one's got to go. St. Louis Athlete Edition. Dvorsky, Neighbors, Wynn, or Walker?
Walker, obviously, because he's not a major leaguer. He's in the minors.
Damn, man. It's tough.
And I think it would be Walker. I think it's
you're
Walker right now.
Because at least I haven't seen Dvorsky fail, so I can dream about it.
And
I
like
saw Neighbors have success.
Dvorsky, I could still believe is a star.
I'm not sure, like, if Wynn's going to be a superstar. I think he's going to be a really good player.
But I don't know if Walker's going to be
I
either.
don't need Dvorsky. I just haven't seen him do it at the NHL level yet.
I haven't seen him fail.
I haven't
so
seen
I'm
Walker
happy.
do it at the end of the major league level yet. Have you? Because he didn't look like a star last year.
I think he did.
Was he?
For his age, absolutely.
Yeah.
I don't think he
it's
was a star.
incredibly rare for a player to be as good as Walker was last year at his age.
How'd that pan out going into the next year?
Yeah, let's give it more than, a month.
To be fair,
of
like
baseball.
Corbin Carroll could arguably be sent down by Arizona. They won't do it, but he's been awful, just like Jordan Walker's been bad. There's a lot of really good hitters. You guys know that Randy Arozarena guy that we lost this trade for Matthew Liberatore? Guess who's playing better this year so far?
Corbin
Give me a hint,
Carroll
Liberatore.
has a 195 batting average and an OPS of 540 so far this year. And he's one of the best players in Major League Baseball. Now, he hasn't done that this year based on his 20-game sample, or 30-game sample size, rather. He's not one of the best players in Major League Baseball. That's not going to change anything for me. A lot of guys go through a bad 30-game stretch. I am very confident that Corbin Carroll will eventually get it figured out, even though he's been terrible so far this year. All right, last one here. One's got to go running back edition. I find this to be incredibly easy, but I'm curious if you guys feel the same way. Barry Sanders, Emmitt Smith, Marshall Faulk, or Sean Alexander? One's got to go running back edition.
I mean, I think I would get rid of Sean Alexander.
I don't really know Sean Alexander, so that's
I mean,
why
he was
goes out
awesome for
me.
like a few years, but
Who
wasn't
did he play for?
Seattle.
I
It's
don't
on the
really
cover
remember.
of Madden. Which Madden was it? 2006? Look at us knowing our
In
Madden games.
2005, Sean Alexander rushed for 1,900 yards and 27 touchdowns.
Damn.
Yeah, he was freaking incredible.
He was like, holy crap.
Hold on,
He was
let
a
me
fantasy.
rethink my answer.
He was a fantasy football
Let me
dream.
put this another way. He won the MVP
Wow.
of the NFL.
Wow.
He was amazing.
You got to be really good to do that if you're not a quarterback.
He was a fantasy football dream.
Yeah,
I'd
he-
still get rid of him, though.
His team went to the Super Bowl that year because
That-
of him. And
it
Lawrence
is funny because,
Smart.
like, now that you mentioned him on Madden, like, I can kind of visualize him on the cover because I do kind of remember that for, like, PS2 or
Yeah.
PS3. That Seahawks team is so forgettable.
Oh, yeah.
Matt Hasselbeck was their
was gonna
starting
say, and
And
quarterback.
that's probably why they're so
I don't know
forgettable.
who
Let
the
me
quarterback
read you
was.
their leading receivers that year. Bobby Ingram,
Never heard of him.
Joe Jaravicious.
Never heard of him.
He was also really good.
What
on
a
the Tampa Bay
great
Buccaneers, too. Jeremy Stevens, tight end. He had 500 yards. And Daryl Jackson, who ended up having some big moments in
I'm
the
now
postseason.
realizing why
And
it's
that
so
team went to the
forgettable.
Super Bowl.
That team went to the Super Bowl and had a really good chance to win.
Who did they lose to that year? Was that
Steelers.
Okay.
Who was defense for
It was a
them?
very forgettable
Were there
Super Bowl,
stars
to be
on
fair.
defense for them?
Oh, wasn't that Kerry Super Bowl?
Oh, my God.
Oh, we got him, boys.
Oh, my.
Oh, BK loves
God.
to send that meme of ladies and gentlemen, we got him. And I just got him.
Oh, yes. T-Bone clipped that for the end of
It
the
was
show.
one that I will never forget, but some others forget about it.
Like Kerry
They
Davis.
shouldn't, though.
Good save. God.
That was not a good save. We have the audio. That was incredible. I do another one's got to go before you wrap this segment up because otherwise that's what's going to stay.
Not
So we all agree it's Sean Alexander, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, why, man?
I enjoyed that Super Bowl, though.
Because they went to a Super Bowl against a most forgettable Super Bowl team that ever won.
That wasn't the one that he won, thank God. I thought he won the one against the Cardinals. He did. That was the one. He wasn't there for
Was he on that team, though?
No. He wasn't there against
He's leaving the
Jesus.
Illini,
You
baby.
just saved your ass.
I couldn't remember which one it was, but I knew it was somewhere in that range.
Ooh, baby.
This is awkward.
I was worried about that one. He played in the game that was super memorable, to be fair. There was a pick six at the end of the half. I don't know if you guys remember that. It was a really important play.
Yeah, that was the that Larry Fitzgerald catch in the end zone.
That was a big one. All right. 3-1 next here on 101 ESPN. 314-399-9646. That is the Air Comfort Service text line. Coming up here in about 5 minutes or so, we'll give you a chance to win a 4-pack of tickets to next Tuesday night's Budweiser Bash game for the Cardinals versus the Mets. It's the next Bud Bash game on the 2024 season. It includes a limited edition Tony Womack bobblehead, and it will be yours if you are texter number 101. Coming up here in just about 5 minutes, you answer the question correctly. Before we get there, though, Alex, we finished the show today where we started, which is with the St. Louis Cardinals. They've got a 3-game set over the weekend against the Chicago White Sox. They will do so without the help of Steven Matz. He has been placed on the injured list. Kyle Leahy officially recalled for the Cardinals. I wouldn't make too much of that. Talked about it a little bit earlier today. My guess is this is just a move that they'll make until Tuesday, and then on Tuesday, they will call up whoever they want to start that game. That's when they'll need another starter. Until then, you can move up Gibson and Michaelis because of the off day. I'm guessing that will be Simra Bursay, but we'll talk about that later next week. Alex, over the weekend in this 3-game set against Chicago, you have to win 2 out of 3, in my opinion. An absolute must to win 2 out of 3. And in those 2 games, you got to look really good. This offense has got to get back on track, and if it's going to do it, this is the time. Brad Keller's not good. He was a Royal. I watched him for a long time. He does not have stuff. You don't have to worry about high velocity against him.
Mitch.
Fetty's been pretty good. Their bullpen's not, though. And then on Sunday, you got a young guy that's really struggling to adjust to being a starter instead of a reliever. Win 2 out of 3. Get this offense going. Figure things out. We'll get back on Monday, and then we'll adjust accordingly. Where are you at with this team right
I'm
now?
a little bit more aggressive with it, which makes sense because it's me, but I think you got to sweep this series. I think you got to sweep this series, and your offense has to show up because even if we're talking about Fetty, who's good, and that's the game we're all looking at saying, I can understand if you lose. Your pitching's been great, and you've got 3 guys that are very reliable going in this series, and 2 of the 3 are not great pitchers, and you got a bad bullpen. This is the series that you should sweep to put yourself in a confident situation.
Yeah, I'm take 2 of 3, make it convincing in those 2 wins. I just think it is so hard to sweep in baseball, even against one of the worst teams in baseball. I mean, the Braves are, in my opinion, the best team in the National League, and they didn't sweep the Chicago White Sox. So a sweep would be a plus. You know, even a good result of taking 2 out of 3 and being convincing in those 2 wins. It's not a, hey, the Cardinals are back. It's, hey, good job. You did your job. Now let's use this. This series is more about this needs to be the leaping off point for the Cardinals offense.
If they win 1 out of 3 and the offense stinks, do we see a change in anything with the team on Monday?
I don't think so. I don't think they make any firings. I think it's going to be par for the course where this is still a rough portion of the season and we expect them to get out of it. I don't think you see anybody getting fired.
I think we have 1 more week. I think the end of that Milwaukee series next weekend will be when we could see some potential changes. But up until then, I don't think they make any changes yet.
I'd agree with that. I think they'll go through this, 13 games in 13 days stretch. If they're not hitting by the end of that, then it's, to me, you have to make a move, but I'm kind of with Alex. I'm a little skeptical that they're going to do it.
I think we go to the All-Star break before you see a firing.
If they're hitting like this and we're getting to the All-Star break and they haven't made any changes, this fan base is going to be justifiably furious.
Yeah, but the Cardinals will sit there and say, we're playing 500 baseball. We're a wild card team.
If you guys missed anything from today's show, be
patient.
Be sure to check out the full podcast on the podcast page, 101ESPN.com, and the free 101 ESPN app is where you can go to find it. It is all presented by
Dobbs Tire and Auto Centers.
You can rewatch anything over on YouTube as well at youtube.com/101ESPN STL. While you're over there, hit that subscribe button. It helps us out a little bit. If you could hit that thumbs up, just like that, looks like that over
Tongue
on the YouTube
emoji
page.
too.
That would be a huge help for us as well. It helps other people be able to see what we're doing here at 101 ESPN. And right now, if you're texture number 101 at 314-399-9646, and you can tell us which of the 3 of us does not tip if they are out of the thing that we were looking to order.
People are going to get this one wrong.
Which one of the 3 of us do you believe that one was? We said it earlier today. If you're texture number 101 with the correct answer, you're getting that 4-pack of tickets to next Tuesday night's Budweiser Bash. For Alex and T-Bone, I'm BK. Enjoy your weekend. Hopefully we get back with some Cardinals winners on Monday. I think they will win 3 out of 3 this weekend. Alex does too. I know T-Bone does as well. We'll talk to you on Monday at 11 a.m. The Fast Lane is coming up next here on 101 ESPN.